Hello, good morning everyone. It's 6 o'clock. On today's show, we have a special report on how the asylum crisis is dividing our communities.
The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, is expected to make a statement to Parliament later today, setting out reforms to the appeals system.
It's Monday, September the 1st. We report on the divisions. We report on the divisions over asylum that are pulling our communities apart.
Yeah, no, we should... Can you not see we talking?
Some breaking news this morning. Hundreds of people are feared dead in an earthquake in Afghanistan. Plus, an image of a new world order. China, India and Russia promise to be partners, not rivals. In sport, champions Liverpool score an early contender for goal of the season to beat rivals Arsenal. And then Liverpool are set to sign Alexander Isak from Newcastle for a British record fee. Hello, good morning. Well, the government is hoping to turn the tide on the wave of anti-migration protests this summer by setting out plans for reforms to border security and the asylum system later today. The Home Secretary plans to highlight what she'll call record success in tackling people smugglers when she addresses Parliament this afternoon. We'll have more on that with Mari in a moment. But first, let's give you a flavour of Siobhan Freeman-Powell's special report from Nuneaton, one of the towns at the flashpoint of the migration debate.
Here in Nuneaton, tensions around immigration are running high.
They're markets.
No, mate. That's the issue we have in our country.
I'm used to this conflict.
No, but
that's my...
No one should be used to that.
The country is not safe, but my country now, I'm safe. I want to go back.
Were you born in England?
I was born in England, yeah.
People tend to have a very wrong perception of the numbers, and this is partly because the whole issue has become so politicised.
So I think it's given certain people a licence to be aggressive and to be racist.
Wow, to hear that actually is saddening, and I think what I've just heard is not the case at all.
This is our country. How about becoming your country if you're your kid? Never going to happen.
Yeah,
Never going to happen, mate.
And you can watch Siobhan Freeman-Powell's full report. That's at 6:30 this morning. We're joined now by our political correspondent, Mari Aurora. So we're going to be hearing from the Home Secretary later today about her plans to curb the crisis that we've seen this summer and the anger that seems to be swelling from some communities. Mari, morning.
Morning, yeah. So it's September the 1st, Parliament is back and the fight back begins. We've had a summer, as you say, of tensions, protests, frustrated constituents, violence, a whole host, as it were, a range of different issues, all migration-related, reform holding several press conferences, weekly press conferences, really dominating the debate much more than perhaps they should have been doing. Many would argue perhaps Labour should have been a bit more proactive in the summer as trying to take up some of that oxygen in the political debate. But nonetheless, the PM is back from his holiday in Croatia. He has written an article in the Daily Mirror criticising reform and the Tories when it comes to immigration. He's also doing a radio phone-in later today as well, talking and taking questions from listeners. And then the Home Secretary making that statement in the House of Commons today, where we'll get a bit more flesh on the bones of some of the plans for her to change border security and also reform the asylum process. So what we know so far is there's going to be a tightening of the rules for migrants who are granted asylum, specifically around family reunion. And so essentially when somebody is granted asylum, then they can apply to bring their family over. Yvette Cooper says that actually we're not keeping pace with European nations who have changed their rules around this, so we need to keep up with them. And so she wants family members to potentially adhere to a certain criteria. This is because the government says that it's going to relieve pressure on local authorities where homelessness applications linked to the family reunion route have risen in recent years, which of course then potentially could put a financial burden on local councils at a time when they're already stretched. And so this is what we're going to be hearing from Yvette Cooper. Also, we're told by the government there's going to be an update on the French deal, the one-in, one-out deal as well. So we'll see how much more of an update we get on that. What's really interesting, though, is we've got an education minister on the programme this morning. We haven't actually seen Yvette Cooper very much this summer. We haven't really seen much of the Home Office team this summer, to be honest, despite the fact that it was the dominating story. Then you've got Reform press conference happening today as well. Meanwhile, the Tories in the House of Lords, they're trying to attempt to write into the Planning and Infrastructure Bill the requirement for local communities to give consent if a hotel is going to be used to house migrants. Labour say this smacks of rank hypocrisy because Chris Philp in COVID stopped that from happening and never brought it back. So they say actually this is a Tory problem. So lots on the agenda this week.
And we're ready for it. OK, Mari, thank you so much for that. We'll speak to you later, 6:45 News Review. We do have some breaking news now. Officials say a strong earthquake in eastern Afghanistan has killed at least 250 people and injured at least 400 others. Let's take a look at the details and where it is. The quake's epicentre, we're hearing, is in the east of the country, near the city of Jalalabad, which is roughly around 74 miles away from Afghanistan's capital, Kabul. Let's get more on this. Sky's Sadia Chowdhury joins us now. 250 people reported to have been killed.
Yeah,
Sadia.
and it seems that with every update that number is jumping, and it is likely to do so because this now is a search, a rescue search, a mission to try and get people out from under the rubble. The stories that we are hearing, the pictures that we are seeing, showing a devastating impact of this earthquake. It happened around midnight last night, local time, which is a time when most people would have already gone to bed, especially children, and unconfirmed reports saying that in one village alone, 30 people were killed. And so that gives you an indication of just what we're expecting in terms of further announcements regarding the death toll. Some of the pictures that we're seeing that we are still verifying, some of them show homes reduced to rubble, people on stretchers waiting to be treated, and others out in the night with lamps, makeshift lamps, looking for loved ones. Jalalabad, as you say, the epicentre of this earthquake, about 74 miles east of the capital, Kabul. It is in the Narangahar province, which is a mountainous region, but reports saying that the shock could be felt as far away as the capital of Pakistan in Islamabad, which is about 186 miles away. Jalalabad is a very mountainous region, and it is currently experiencing flooding as well. So it is in the thunderstorm season. At night especially, there are lots of thunderstorms. Even tonight's forecast showing thunderstorms. And over the weekend, flash flooding there affected around 400 families. So you can imagine how tough that makes the ongoing aid work in the area. Communication also very limited and very difficult to establish. So getting news back from teams on the ground is also proving to be hard. And also those floods caused a lot of traffic disruption. So the roads are now blocked due to landslides and because of that flooding. So, you know, the roads from Pakistan, which is a neighbouring country, into Afghanistan in particular, one of the perhaps biggest aid routes, now also blocked. So there are calls now from local officials for the humanitarian organisations to try and assist in the aid and rescue effort, especially in those mountainous regions, which are now currently only accessible by air. So a 6 magnitude earthquake with tremors felt nearly 200 miles away, a number of aftershocks, hundreds feared dead, homes completely destroyed, and now a very difficult rescue mission ongoing.
OK, Sadia, thank you so much for that update. Of course, we'll bring you the latest news as and when we get it on that story. Thank you, Sadia. Well, it's day 2 of an economic and security summit in China with world leaders, including Russia's Vladimir Putin, in attendance. But it's the presence of India's Narendra Modi which holds the most significance. It's his first visit to China in 7 years and comes in the aftermath of Donald Trump's latest tariffs. Let's get more from our India correspondent now, Neville Lazarus. Good morning, Neville. Just tell us about the significance of India's participation in this summit.
Oh, it is very significant. I mean, we're talking about the two most populous countries in the world, India and China. China and India have had a stormy relationship. The diplomacy has been in a sort of a free fall, in a freeze after the clashes that took place in the summer of 2020. 20 Indian soldiers were killed. There was a lot of uproar in the country, and then these talks between these two giant Asian neighbors kind of froze. There's been a lot of dispute amongst the over 2,000-mile boundary between the two countries in the Himalayas. But this has seen a major thaw. The SCO meeting's been a major thaw, and this primarily is because India and Prime Minister Modi in particular has been sort of singled out by the American president, his administration. There's been a punitive 25% tariff put on India for buying discounted Russian oil, and this has come into effect just last week, taking the total tariff on India to more than 50%, which is one of the highest in the world. And we've heard some really disparaging remarks from the trade advisor of President Trump, Peter Navarro, who's talked about it's been Modi's war when he's talking about the Ukraine war. He's also commented saying that New Delhi is Kremlin's laundromat, and has been pretty disparaging about the Indian government, has sort of pushing India into this sphere of India, Russia and China. India and Russia have a very long-standing relationship with each other since the Cold War, the 70s, 80s, and after that there's been very close defense relationship between them. India has about 65% of defense equipment from Russia, but has been trying to wean itself from and buying other defense equipments from the West. But nevertheless, there's been a very long-standing relationship between India and Russia. But now we've seen this axis of these three major countries coming together, primarily also New Delhi recalibrating its foreign policy and looking to other partners now. So it is very significant, this meeting between these three leaders.
OK, Neville, for now, thank you. Let's take a look at other news now. And a suspect has been arrested in the fatal shooting of pro-Western Ukrainian politician Andrei Paraby. Now, President Zelensky has announced the news on social media after the former parliamentary speaker was killed in the city of Lviv on Saturday. Mr. Zelensky says the investigation is ongoing. Now, the former mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani, has been taken to hospital after a car crash in New Hampshire. His spokesperson said the 81-year-old was hit from behind on Saturday evening, and the impact fractured his vertebrae. He's expected to be released from hospital in the next few days. Australian police have arrested a 39-year-old man after a car was driven into the gates of the Russian consulate in Sydney. Police say two officers were injured in the incident after they tried to speak with the driver, who was parked in the driveway of the consulate. Digital rail tickets based on GPS tracking are being tested out from today in some parts of England as the government want to plan to improve the rail fare system, and passengers taking part will pay the best fare for their journey by checking in and out on the app tracking their travel. A 34-year-old British woman has been stabbed to death in Cambodia. We're hearing local media is reporting the victim has been identified as Jessica Carraid Hopkins. Our Asia correspondent Cordelia Lynch joins us now from Bangkok. Give us an update. What do we know at this stage, Cordelia?
Good morning. Well, very sad news coming out of Cambodia's capital, Phnom Penh. Local police say that a British woman, 34-year-old Jessica Carraid Hopkins, has died after being stabbed multiple times in a park there in a southern district of the city. They've also said that 17 hours later, they arrested a 33-year-old Congolese woman they identified as Kidikila Naganda Glody. Now, the victim, Jessica, came from Harpenden in Hertfordshire, but she had spent time, as we understand it, renting an apartment in the capital and sometime in Siem Reap as well. The Foreign Office has released a statement saying, we are supporting the family of a British woman who has died in Cambodia and are in contact with the local authorities. Now, the arrest appeared to be caught on camera, and that's been circulated on social media. The 33-year-old handcuffs outside a hair salon in the capital, about 1.5 miles away from the crime scene. We await, though, further details on this case.
Okay. Cordelia, thank you. Well, still to come on The Breakfast Show. We're heading for a short break. When we return, as China hosts Russia's President Putin in the shadow of the war in Ukraine, we're taking a look at how international politics is shaping global trade.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation futures.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Bangkok.
These slums, once gripped by fear and death.
There is far less bloodshed now, but it hasn't gone away.
Who's asking you to kill?
The police will give me the orders, and after I kill the target, I throw the gun away.
We try our best to uncover and unpick a fast-changing and deeply complex region.
These large waterways provided an excellent source of body disposal.
This is the Buriganga River, where victims who'd allegedly been shot dead were dumped. Sheikh Hasina, how confident are you that she will stand trial?
She will stand trial, there's no doubt about that.
We're going to take you to the very heart of a criminal network, going undercover inside Southeast Asia's scam centres for the very first time.
We won't have any problems with police, it's okay.
Just seen Imran Khan leave, and as we understand it, he's just been shot in the leg.
They have decided that the only way they'll allow elections is if I'm inside jail or killed.
Sky News get the full story first.
Chinese vessels start encircling the boat we're on, blocking its path.
The Chinese are now deploying water cannons, firing it directly towards our boat. We've discovered doctors across Delhi dishing out pills like this, claiming they will provide a lifelong cure for homosexuality.
Rohingya people fleeing an escalating civil war.
The situation here in Cox's is desperate. An already insecure place does feel a lot more precarious.
Welcome back. As China's President Xi Jinping hosts leaders from the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which includes Russia and India, our economics and data editor Ed Conway explains how the changing geopolitics, including the war in Ukraine, has reshaped global trade.
What are the long-term economic consequences of war in Ukraine? It's worth just kind of bearing that in mind, because we're at one of these pivotal moments where other things are happening as a result of what's happening in Ukraine. Now, as you know, okay, so you've got Europe, you've got the NATO members, most of the NATO members there, and over there, there's this other grouping that most people won't necessarily have heard of, certainly in Europe, which is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Now, the members of this are to be found over here, as you would expect. So China is really the leader of it, or at least set it up. You've got Russia as well, which is a part of it. You've got Mongolia and Afghanistan. They're observer members as well. Belarus recently joined. But perhaps most interestingly, India is a part of this as well. And if you look at the kind of global map, you see that whereas you've got kind of NATO over here, the European Union there, This is an alternative bloc, isn't it? It's an alternative bloc with some economic power, some real economic clout that you'll see in just a moment. And the backdrop, obviously, they're meeting in Tianjin, there it is. But the backdrop for this is that you're seeing a big divergence in terms of economic relationship between the West and those other nations. And you get a sense of this when you look at exports of goods from the G7, that's the dark blue line there, and China, to Russia. They were more or less rising in lockstep with each other before the invasion of Ukraine, and then look at what happened next. So the red line, China, that continues to go even higher. The dark blue line there, the G7, basically goes down to zero. Look at it, it's really clear in terms of the economic destiny of these two nations. And it's even clearer, actually, when you drill down into just particular sectors. This is transportation equipment, so stuff like planes, trains, automobiles from China. That was basically zero before the invasion of Ukraine, and then look, afterwards, it goes through the roof. Totally unprecedented levels. So that's China sending goods to Russia. How about Russia sending goods out? Well, a lot of that is now going to India. So India, before the invasion of Ukraine, didn't receive much in the way of oil. This is showing you where oil coming to India, so crude oil, came from. It came mostly from Saudi Arabia, from Iraq, from the US, and from others as well. Russia's the red bit there, not much at all before the invasion of Ukraine. Then after the invasion, look at this. Now, Russia is one of the biggest contributors of oil to India. And obviously that gets refined in Indian refineries and then sent out around the world. And that is something that Donald Trump has said he's not happy about at all. And he's threatening to impose secondary tariffs on India. What does that mean in practice? Well, this is showing you tariff levels for different nations. So the tariffs that the US is imposing on various different nations, you've got Malaysia, you've got Cambodia, Vietnam there. There's India, that's 25%. China is even higher at the moment, and then Myanmar and Laos. But if you impose secondary tariffs on India, look at this bar. That goes up to basically 50%, making India pretty much the most tariff nation by the US. And that is something that's worth bearing in mind when you look at this chart as well. Okay, so this is showing you the share of global economy, global economic output, so GDP, accounted for by advanced economies. And that share has gone gradually lower over time, not because we're getting worse off. The amount of income generated is still going up. It's just the other part of the global economy is getting richer. And that, if you look at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, so that map I showed you a moment ago, here are the members of that. Tot it all up, and they, by 2030 or so, are likely to account for basically 50% of global GDP when you look at purchasing power parity, which is a pretty important comparison. It really just shows you the changing face of global economics. These nations, that bloc, is now accounting for a massive amount of economic heft. And at the same time, one of the other transitions that we're seeing right now is, well, this is quite momentous here. If you think about these two nations, India, there's Modi, there's China, President Xi, these two nations have been at economic loggerheads for decades. And so there's this prospect of, with higher tariffs on India, is India being pushed towards more of a rapprochement, an economic relationship with China that no one would have necessarily foreseen before war in Ukraine broke out?
OK, let's take a look at your sport.
Goal! I've spotted an opportunity, found the space and slotted it home. It's what I do. This sports bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
So Liverpool and Newcastle have agreed a British record transfer deal for Alexander Isak. Sky Sports News understand Liverpool will pay a fee of £125 million for the striker, eclipsing the record set by Brighton's sale of Moses Caicedo to Chelsea. That was about 2 years ago. Premier League champions Liverpool scored an early contender for goal of the season to beat rivals Arsenal at Anfield. Fantastic free kick, wasn't it, from 30 yards by Dominic Szoboszlai in the second half, and it secured all 3 points for Liverpool. They're the only Premier League side to have maximum points from their opening 3 games. Is anything going to stop them? Who knows? Still early days. Elsewhere, Chelsea beat Aston Villa 3-0 to get their first win of the campaign. Captain Mark Gay scored their second. The defender is being strongly linked with a move to Liverpool today on transfer deadline day. It's all about Liverpool. Brighton came from a goal down to beat Man City 2-1. And Sir Brian Gruder scored the winner a minute from time. And under pressure, West Ham boss Graham Potter saw his side get their first win of the season. Jarrod Bowen scored the first in a 3-0 win at Nottingham Forest. And in cricket, the Oval Invincibles won the men's 100 competition for the third year in a row. They beat Trent Rockets by 26 runs at Lord's. Meanwhile, Northern Superchargers won the women's 100 for the first time.
Yeah, I'll give it a go. Anyone got gloves in my size? I need 4.
Well, still to come on The Breakfast Show. Do stay with us. From local anger to asylum seekers living in limbo, Sky News correspondent Shaman Freeman-Powell's special report coming up on the town at the centre of the UK's migration debate.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometres away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Bangkok.
These slums, once gripped by fear and death.
There is far less bloodshed now, but it hasn't gone away.
Who's asking you to kill?
The police will give me the orders, and after I kill the target, I throw the gun away.
We try our best to uncover and unpick a fast-changing and deeply complex region.
These large waterways provided an excellent source of body disposal.
This is the Buriganga River, where victims who'd allegedly been shot dead were dumped. Sheikh Hasina, how confident are you that she will stand trial?
She will stand trial, there's no doubt about that.
We're going to take you to the very heart of a criminal network, going undercover inside Southeast Asia's scam centres for the very first time.
We won't have any problems with police, it's okay.
Just seen Imran Khan leave, and as we understand it, he's just been shot in the leg.
They have decided that the only way they'll allow elections is if I'm inside jail or killed.
Sky News get the full story first.
Chinese vessels start encircling the boat we're on, blocking its path.
The Chinese are now deploying water cannons, firing it directly towards our boat. We've discovered doctors across Delhi dishing out pills like this, claiming they will provide a lifelong cure for homosexuality.
Rohingya people fleeing an escalating civil war.
The situation here in Cox's is desperate. An already insecure place does feel a lot more precarious.
Hi, we were telling you earlier about some breaking news of an earthquake that's hit eastern Afghanistan, close to the border with Pakistan. We've had an update from the Afghanistan state broadcaster, and they're reporting that at least 500 people have been killed, many more others injured. The earthquake hit the border with Pakistan. It's destroyed numerous villages and caused extensive damage. But the Afghanistan state broadcaster now reporting that at least 500 people have been killed. We will update you throughout the morning on this story here on Sky News. But we'll move on now to our top story today. And Nuneaton has become a flashpoint in Britain's asylum debate. Our Midlands correspondent, Shaman Freeman-Powell, has spent several days in the town meeting asylum seekers living in overcrowded houses, campaigners standing up to racism, and then residents whose anger has spilled into open hostility. This is her Sky News special report.
Here in Nuneaton, tensions around immigration are running high.
Hey, go on.
The camera's rolling.
I don't care.
Just relax.
They're markets.
Just relax.
In markets.
That's the issue we have using in our country.
I'm used to this conflict.
No, but that's
mine.
No one should be used to that.
No.
This is just one small market town that's been thrust into the national spotlight as immigration becomes the flashpoint for public protests. Here, asylum seekers aren't living in hotels, but amongst the community. And I've spoken to some of them, living right next door to locals.
I had to come here illegally. I had to. I had no other choice.
And I've spoken to a former asylum seeker who is now asking the Home Office to deport him.
The country is not safe, but my country now, I'm safe. I want to go back.
And I've asked locals how they feel about the situation in their town, trying to get to the root cause of the tensions.
Were you born in England?
I was born in England, yeah. So whilst the asylum seekers' housing issue sparks fierce debate in the UK, we are here to ask an important question. How is a small town like Nuneaton adjusting to a new reality? These kinds of protests are popping up all over the UK, including this small town in Warwickshire, where anti-immigration protesters have taken to the streets several times and have even clashed with police. Heather Kincaid, who is a volunteer for Care for Calais, was at one of these counter-protests.
A lot of yelling, things being ripped out of people's hands. A couple of people got assaulted. Well, if they did do anything to me, they've sort of lost the argument that they're making, haven't they? Because if it's all about like protecting local women, well, that's me. So.
The protest started after two men were accused of raping a 12-year-old girl. The men deny the charges and are due to face trial. The leader of the reform-led council, George Finch, claimed that they were asylum seekers, although their immigration status hasn't been confirmed.
We do not need to be smashing up police, wasting time and hurting them. That's disorder, that's what happened in Epping, and that's a riot. And in Nuneaton, it was a peaceful protest.
The issue of asylum seekers and immigration runs deeper than an isolated protest. It's a matter of space, resources, and the delicate balance of coexisting with the local community.
I don't think I'd want to live next door to, not being funny, not being racist at all, an asylum seeker, knowing what's been going on the news.
I'd rather be putting a hotel out the way, do you know what I mean? But yeah, I don't agree with it putting residential areas at all, no.
20-year-olds getting married or partners, they're struggling to get on the property ladder. And these asylum seekers, you know, 5-star hotels, a lot of you said these HMO places, you know, I think it's unfair.
I've seen the amount of immigration into the local area recently. As long as there's no trouble, I don't think that there's an issue, really.
Do you mind me asking, do you think race plays a part in any of this at all?
I'm not sure. Maybe, because obviously quite a lot of people are racist and can be racist, but obviously I'm not about that. Obviously you do you at the end of the day, you are who you are, obviously.
No, I don't think it's got anything to do with race. I mean, we've got Chinese people here, we've got Indians, we've got Africans.
Were you born in England?
I was born in England, yeah.
Yeah, so you're English, and England is for the English.
But my grandparents came from Jamaica.
Well, I've got nothing against Jamaica.
But they were
West
immigrants.
Indies, I've probably got one of the best cricket teams I've ever seen.
It was during an interview with Zaheen, a local businessman, that things took a turn. And how old are you?
32.
32.
Yeah.
How? What do you
Yeah, no, we should... Can you not see we talking?
No, because you're going on about your religion and Christians, the true life, the way and the truth, mate. Jesus is the way, the truth and the life. Yeah, that's the issue we have using in our country. You got to use raping our kids. Shut your mouth! This is our country. How about becoming your country and do that in your kids? Never gonna happen. Never gonna happen, mate. We won't do that. When we become your country, do that to your kids. We'll get beheaded.
You know,
these are our children. No, mate.
What are you teaching them kids? You're mouthing
All right, no.
Go on, say something about more kids. Go on. The camera's rolling. I don't care. Just relax. They're more kids.
No, mate.
Let's walk. To avoid an escalation of the confrontation, I attempted to move Zahin away. Are you okay?
Yeah. Because I'm used to this conflict.
No, but no one should be used to that. But moments later, he turned around, concerned for his twin sister, who at this point is surrounded by the group.
So why are you making me? Why are you acting like I'm the problem?
I attempted to speak to them, giving them an opportunity to air their views, but tensions were high and a calm conversation seemed unlikely.
You're just racist. You are racist. You have to face.
So we walked away. A woman who worked at the local bookshop had heard the commotion and came to speak to us. Have you ever seen anything like that?
No. Well, there have been protests. And of course, Warwickshire County Council's gone to reform. So I think it's given certain people a licence to be aggressive and to be racist.
Wow, to hear that actually is saddening. And I think what I've just heard is not the case at all. Reform, actually, and Nigel Farage as the leader, has done the most out of any political party, out of any person, to take down the far right, to protect young girls. They think that you going out protesting, that's racist. And that's the world going mad.
As more anti-immigration protests pop up across Britain, councils like Epping have taken legal steps to block asylum seekers being housed in hotels. But if asylum seekers aren't housed in hotels, they may be housed next door, like here in Nuneaton. We've just been invited into a house where asylum seekers live. This used to be a 3-bed house on a terrace road. It's now a house that sleeps 8 people. As soon as you walk into the kitchen, there are so many signs saying, keep the area clear, reminding people to empty the bins. The kitchen area is the main communal area. This is where 8 men will sit to have their breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I spoke to one of the residents here, Javed. We're not using his real name as he asked to stay anonymous. So Javed does not want to be on camera, but he has agreed to show us his room. Hi, Javed. I'm just going to take a look around your room. So this is the space that Javed currently lives in. He's behind the door, as I said. He doesn't want to go on camera, but you can see there's not much in it. It is spacious. There's a single bed. Javed told me earlier as well that he does Bible studies. I can see he has his Bible and his Bible studies notes here. He's from Iran and could only speak Farsi. We used a translation app to speak to him and then had a translator review what he told us. Tell me why you left Iran.
I left Iran because I changed my religion and became a Christian. When I went to the house church, I realised they had arrested the worshippers. I got scared and turned around. The next day, they attacked our house and I wasn't there. I was out of town.
Did you come here on a small boat? And if so, what was that journey like?
I didn't know how to swim, and I was very scared. But they forced me to get on the boat. I had to come here illegally. I had to. I had no other choice.
Asylum seekers here can't work, they can't study, and they wait often for months and sometimes years for their claims to be processed. And in the meantime, they live among us. This man has now been living in Nuneaton for 4 months.
We are mostly at home and only go out to go to the shop. I would like to return to my normal life and be able to work, study and improve on my English.
So why are asylum seekers here in Nuneaton living in residential properties, and how did we get to this point? A few years ago, asylum seekers in Nuneaton were few and far between, in single digits. But by June of this year, that number had surged to 247, none of them in hotels. Instead, they're living in dispersal accommodation, in the community, side by side with locals. That works out to 19 asylum seekers per 10,000 people, placing Nuneaton 87th in terms of concentration. The growing number of asylum seekers is now at the heart of political debate, and the conversation has largely been steered by the Reform Party, but even they haven't decided on a solution.
Women and children, everybody on arrival will be detained. The deportation of illegal immigrants, we were not even discussing women and children at this stage. If a single woman, etc., comes to Britain, they will be detained and deported.
The current government has also introduced fresh policies, amongst them plans to make it easier to remove foreign-born criminals who commit crimes in this country.
If I don't have paper here to work or my refugee status, I'm aged 50. Why I'm here?
As we were talking to people in the city centre, we met Yusuf. He told us he came to the UK 2 decades ago to seek asylum. But after a criminal conviction for a serious assault, he was stripped of his right to work. He claimed for the past 5 months, he's been asking to be deported to his home country, Somalia, but is still waiting for a Home Office response.
I don't want to come here to eat and sleep like baby. You understand? Just I have life, go back and in Somalia. The country is not safe, but my country now, I'm safe. I want to go back.
You do feel like you would be safer in Somalia than you would be in Nuneaton?
In Nuneaton, yes, yeah. Yes.
I think people might be surprised to hear that, Yusuf.
Not surprised. I live here because when I saw the face, they change. Yeah, they change the face. When they saw you, they change. They cannot talk.
Whether they are waiting for their asylum status to be confirmed or they are waiting to be repatriated, one pressing question remains. Who should be responsible for housing asylum seekers? Under international law, the government must provide shelter to those seeking asylum and appear to be destitute or likely to become destitute. But the cost of that shelter is staggering. Between 2023 and 24, the Home Office spent £4.7 billion on asylum support, nearly 4 times the amount spent in 2020 to 21. And 76 pence of every pound went straight to pay for hotel bills. It's a financial strain that's prompted a shift, away from hotels and towards residential housing. But local authorities are already facing pressures, and extra demand for asylum seekers affects councils' capacity to source temporary accommodation. In Nuneaton and Bedworth, social housing waiting lists have nearly doubled since 2021, climbing from 1,900 to 3,900 applicants. That's a 97% surge compared to just 12% nationally. The number of houses in multiple occupation, or HMOs, has soared too. In 2019 to 2020, there were 114. By 2023 to 24, that number had grown to 194. It's data that paints a picture of pressure, of change, of a town adjusting to a new reality.
People tend to have a very wrong perception of the numbers, and this is partly because the whole issue has become so politicised. We can accommodate these people, and again, one of the ways that I think would really help to combat that perception that people have is by allowing people to work and allowing them to contribute to their communities.
They try to ignore us.
To my left, you can see there is a protest currently taking place. It's the 3rd protest now in 3 weeks. This protest seems to be organised by a group called Homeland. They describe themselves as being a nationalist party which supports remigration of illegal, unintegrated and unwelcome migrants.
Remigration is inevitable.
That's your statement? Okay. Do you have a comment on the fact that some people have called your party a far-right party? I could hear conversations say that you weren't. There is lots of anger in this country about people coming here on small boats and illegal crossings. Do you know about this, and how does it make you feel?
I understand them. They have the right to behave this way as it's their country.
If they want to protest, by all means protest, but there has to be a solution, and I think that solution comes through dialogue, not ranting off, swearing at each other.
There's something in the air that's given a racist element real permission to be horrible. I'd like a little bit more compassion and solidarity, and I think the only way we're going to do that is being a community again.
In a statement, a spokesperson for the Home Office told Sky News, "This government inherited an asylum system in chaos. We have taken urgent action to fix the system, more than doubling asylum decisions and cutting the backlog by 41%. And the cost of asylum hotels was reduced by almost £1 billion in 2024 to 25. In regards to Yusuf's case, the government told Sky News it cannot comment on individual cases, but it always seeks to ensure the removal of those who have committed serious crimes in our country, whether that's through enforced deportations or voluntary returns. After the incident in the town centre, Zaheen decided not to press charges.
We have to feel accepted in it, included, be part of it.
That's still to come on The Breakfast Show. After a short break, we'll be discussing the stories making news today with my very lovely colleagues Gareth and Mari. Do join us.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war.
This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Bangkok.
These slums, once gripped by fear and death.
There is far less bloodshed now, but it hasn't gone away.
Who's asking you to kill?
The police will give me the orders, and after I kill the target, I throw the gun away.
We try our best to uncover and unpick a fast-changing and deeply complex region.
These large waterways provided an excellent source of body disposal.
This is the Buriganga River, where victims who'd allegedly been shot dead were dumped.
Sheikh Hasina, how confident are you that she will stand trial?
She will stand trial, there's no doubt about that.
We're going to take you to the very heart of a criminal network, going undercover inside Southeast Asia's scam centres for the very first time.
We won't have any problems with police, it's okay. Just seen Imran Khan leave, and as we understand it, he's just been shot in the leg.
They have decided that the only way they'll allow elections is if I'm inside jail or killed.
Sky News get the full story first.
Chinese vessels start encircling the boat we're on, blocking its path.
The Chinese are now deploying water cannons, firing it directly towards our boat. We've discovered doctors across Delhi dishing out pills like this, claiming they will provide a lifelong cure for homosexuality.
Rohingya people fleeing an escalating civil war.
The situation here in Cox's is desperate. An already insecure place does feel a lot more precarious.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury.
I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
Welcome back. We'll kick off our news review very shortly, but as you can see, I'm joined by friends Mari and Gareth.
Yes.
Great to see you both.
Good to be here. It's nice to get up early for once, rather than just slacking in mid-mornings. It's nice to...
Yeah, you know, you've got it easy now, Gareth. But hey, guys, lots coming up from 7. Gareth,
Yes.
you're steering the ship. What's coming up?
Like you say, an awful lot coming up. First of all, we're going to be speaking to Donald Trump's former National Security Advisor, John Bolton, as the China summit enters its second day. Lots of focus
on the world leaders that he's brought together as well, including Narendra Modi of India, a big boon there, I think, for Xi Jinping, and also the first visit to Beijing in 6 years for Kim Jong-un as well, and the first time that a North Korean leader's gone to a Chinese military parade since 1959. So lots of geopolitics there. Going to talk to John Bolton about those. Also more on our special report as well. The government at 7:15, we're going to be hearing from the Minister about migration. It's been a big issue. You would forget that Parliament's been on recess over the course of August, wouldn't you? It feels as though we've had non-stop politics for all month.
Yeah.
And it will not stop again at all. And neither are the votes. Many would argue, despite the government saying they're doing everything they can to change that. And then, of course...
Well, it's transfer deadline day, isn't it? Which closes at 7 o'clock this evening. And some of the big names we'll be looking out for: Alexander Isak from Newcastle to Liverpool, potentially. Liverpool also looking to sweep up Marcus Gay as well. So could be a winning season for them again.
That Isak story's been going on for weeks now, though. That point where he's having to train by himself separately whilst the rest of the squad are training at the other part of the pitch was...
Absolutely. Big characters, which make the Premier League a very exciting one to watch this season.
I think I understood about 30% of what you both just said.
Fair enough, Murray.
Some people, Murray, very excited. I am not one of them.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but it sounds really exciting.
OK, let's kick off our news review then, guys. I wanted to start, actually, with the front page of the Daily Telegraph. Queen fought off sex attacker, a rare experience that the Queen has never spoken about. So it's detailed in a book. When she was around 16 or 17, she was on a train where she was approached by a man, and she said that he slid his hand along her leg, tried to grope her. And she said, the only way I knew how to respond was to take my shoes off. This is an actual quote, and hit him in the nuts. So this book is called Power and the Palace. It's by Valentine Lowe. She's never detailed this particular incident, but she had spoken to the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson about it. And the reason that we're hearing about it now is obviously this book, but we know that the Queen is very linked to campaigning for domestic abuse victims, for rape victims. She's opened up 2 rape crisis centres in the country, but she's never actually spoken about this. And the reason that she hasn't at any of those big events is she didn't want to be the main story, because there were victims that were obviously front and centre needing those centres, but she didn't want it to be about her. And it comes at, a backdrop where 96% of people, young women, report incidents on, tubes and, situations that they'd rather not be in, of course. So it's a huge issue, and it speaks of a rare insight into something that was really quite deep and ran deep for the Queen, this late Camilla, which I think's fascinating insight.
And remarkable not to tell that story, but to use that experience, and it should never have happened, but to use that experience to try and support and empower other people who have had similar situations. Front page of The Sun. I defended myself by doing what my mother had taught me to do, and then had the man arrested.
Yes, yes. So I just think that's one that will be quite interesting for many viewers this morning as they wake up.
I think a lot of people will identify with.
Yeah. Shall we move on to... Is this the Mirror?
Yeah, this is Keir Starmer writing in the Mirror. So, as we were saying, it's first day back after the summer holidays, and he wants it to be known that he is taking the fight to reform, to the Tories, to the opposition parties. He does a lot of talking about, free school meals and all the rollout of things that are helping children, which is all fabulous. But I'm going to focus near the end of the op-ed, where he says, while Reform and the Tories talk down the country at every turn, we're doing the work to make people's lives better. I'm not interested in scaremongering from the sidelines. I'm rolling up my sleeves to deliver change that makes a difference to you and your family. So really attacking Nigel Farage in so many words. He so says the last government refused to back Britain by funding the homes, transport, energy and other vital infrastructure that we need. And then he goes on to criticise them more and says his plan for change, we're going to be doing things differently and putting more money in your pocket. The difficulty is the bottom line when it comes to putting more money in people's pockets. Yes, obviously the childcare rollout is fantastic for those who use it and need it, but also things like food price inflation are going in the wrong direction. There are all these other metrics. We know energy bills are going up. And so the rhetoric sounds great, but unfortunately it doesn't quite chime 100% with the reality.
Well, it's that final line, our drive to deliver national renewal will make every person feel better off and more secure. And then if you pick up the I, there's a poll in the I that says that 77% of Britons think that the country's broken.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge the Prime Minister has. They can say all these lovely words, but that's not what people's perception is.
And what I've been saying before is that Labour need to be very careful about telling everybody that everything is broken. Because if they continue to tell everybody that everything is broken, everybody will start to believe them. And then they'll find it harder to persuade people that things are not broken anymore when they decide they want to tell people that.
Yeah, no, good point. Gareth, can you take us to The Guardian? Gold rush is over for corporate backlash against diversity, and it's hitting LGBTQ+ media.
Yeah, this is an article by Michael Savage, their media editor, and just quoting Tag Warner, the chief executive of Gay Times, whose publication has been growing massively in the United States, and said that they have lost 80% of advertisers in the past year, lost more than £5 million in revenue as a result of that. And he blames the anti-DEI drive in the US for that shift. There had been huge enthusiasm by brands to embrace LGBTQ+ audiences, and certainly in the US, those kind of centred brands, it's waning. The flip side, according to the managing director of the publisher behind Attitude, brands, he says, are nervous, that's for sure, and careful, a combination of both. They're aware that it can be a lightning rod for a vocal minority, but our experience is most people are holding their ground, if not doubling down. And then quotes from some other kind of organisations as well. But just that sense that brands are getting wary about being allied to, well, LGBTQ+ causes.
OK. Just before we go, what was your favourite Christmas toy?
Favourite
Christmas toy?
Oh, Playmobil, always.
Playmobil.
Yeah.
Maury?
Christmas toy or just toy? I mean,
Well,
I don't think I
Christmas
had a
toy in
Christmas
particular,
themed
because there's been a
toys.
list that's released already that says this top Christmas toy will be Bluey.
What is that? Wow.
Speaking to all the parents out there, see you after the break.
I'm David Blevins, and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent. I've spent 30 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace. The end of the political stalemate, the start of a new chapter for Northern Ireland. Catholics and Protestants now facing the same threat.
If we both contract COVID-19, religion's nothing.
Sky News, the full story first.
Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming.
I'm Deborah Hames, Sky Security and Defence Editor. Should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real.
Good morning. It's 7 o'clock. We start with breaking news this morning. At least 500 people have been killed in an earthquake in Afghanistan.
Also ahead, trying to get a grip of the asylum crisis, the Home Secretary will make a statement to MPs today announcing tighter rules on appeals.
And it's transfer deadline day. We'll be talking about Alexander Isak and that forced record move, £125 million from Newcastle to Liverpool.
Plenty to come on Monday, September the 1st. At least 500 dead and 1,000 injured in an earthquake in Afghanistan. We have a special report on the divisions over asylum that are pulling our communities apart.
Yeah, no, we should... Can you not see we talking?
Plus, an image of a new world order. China, India and Russia promise to be partners, not rivals. And in sport, champions Liverpool score an early contender for goal of the season to beat rivals Arsenal. Good morning. We start with breaking news. In the last few seconds, it's been announced that the number of people killed in Afghanistan has risen to 622. That's according to the country's Interior Ministry. The quake's epicentre was in the east of the country, near the city of Jalalabad, which is approximately 74 miles from the capital, Kabul. Let's bring in Sadia Chowdhury, who's following this story. Sadia, this number of people who have killed is rising almost by the minute.
Yeah, exactly. It has just been updated now to 622. That is coming from the Taliban government. That is not a confirmed death toll, of course, because this is now a search and rescue mission, and there are still lots of people believed to be trapped under rubble. The earthquake happened around midnight local time, so that's a time when a lot of people would have already been in bed, especially children. And we can see from the pictures coming in now the sort of scene of the devastation. There are homes that are completely destroyed, people waiting on stretchers to be moved, and lots of people out still looking for loved ones, because, as I say, a search and rescue mission now underway to try and locate anyone else that is there. We are told that helicopters are also involved, ferrying people from the rubble to safety, and residents, soldiers and medics all involved in trying to do whatever they can to locate people. Afghanistan is one of the world's financially poorest countries, and it is highly vulnerable to natural disasters. And this quake's epicentre was close to Jalalabad, which is the country's 5th largest city in the Nangarhar province. That's about 74 miles east of Kabul, which is the capital. And in fact, there are reports that the shock could be felt there, but as well as there around 186 miles away in the capital of Pakistan, in Islamabad, the shock could also be felt there. Jalalabad is a very mountainous region with a lot of hard-to-reach remote areas. It is also currently experiencing thunderstorms. So over the weekend, there was flash flooding there. 400 families were affected. Many of them had to be sort of displaced from there. This will no doubt now impact any aid work going on, because communication in that part of the country is already limited and difficult to establish. But getting news back from teams is proving to be very difficult. Teams on the ground there proving to be very difficult. The flooding also caused landslides in the area, particularly affecting the route in from Pakistan, which could be a traditional sort of aid route into the country to help with these search and rescue efforts. But lots of traffic disrupted there, roads blocked due to landslides, and so that is also impacting the area. There are calls for humanitarian organisations to try and help out, especially through helicopters and routes which are only accessible by air. So a 6 magnitude earthquake. We know there were a number of aftershocks. Now 622 so far is the death toll, many hundreds more injured, but lots of people still suspected to be under the rubble, and the search and rescue mission currently ongoing.
And just plenty more on that story on the Sky News website and Sky News app, bringing together reporting from our team across the country. They say at least 3 villages razed in the province of Kunar, substantial damage in many others. That's according to Afghanistan's health ministry. More online as we get it. We'll bring it to you here as well on Sky News. Now then, the government will set out plans to improve border security and reform the asylum appeals system later today.
Yeah, we'll have more, of course, from Mari on that in a moment. But first, let's show you Shaman Freeman-Powell's special report from Nuneaton, a town that's become one of the flashpoints of the migration debate.
Here in Nuneaton, tensions around immigration are running high.
That's the issue we have in our country.
Anti-immigration protesters have taken to the streets several times and even clashed with police. The protest started after 2 men were accused of raping a 12-year-old girl. The men deny the charges and are due to face trial. The leader of the reform-led council, George Finch, claimed that they were asylum seekers, although their immigration status hasn't been confirmed.
I don't think I'd want to live next door to, not being funny, not being racist at all, an asylum seeker, knowing what's been going on the news.
20-year-olds getting married or partners, they're struggling to get on the property ladder. And these asylum seekers, 5-star hotels, like you said, these HMO places, I think it's unfair.
I've seen the amount of immigration into the local area recently. As long as there's no trouble, I don't think that there's an issue, really.
Do you think race plays a part in any of this at all?
I'm not sure. Maybe, because obviously quite a lot of people are racist and can be racist.
No, I don't think it's got anything to do with race. I mean, we've got Chinese people here, we've got Indians, we've got Africans.
Were you born in England?
I was born in England, yeah.
Yeah, so you're English, and England is for the English.
But my grandparents came from Jamaica.
Well, I've got nothing against Jamaica.
But they were
West
immigrants.
Indies, I've probably got one of the best cricket teams I've ever seen.
It was during this interview with Zaheen, a local businessman, that things took a turn. And how old are you?
32.
32.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah, no, we should...
That's the issue we have in our country. You got to use raping our kids. This is our country. How about becoming your country if you and your kids?
Let's walk. To avoid an escalation of the confrontation, I attempted to move Zaheen away. Are you okay?
Yeah, because I'm used to this conflict.
No, but that's mine. No one should be used to that. A woman who worked at the local bookshop had heard the commotion and came to speak to us. Have you ever seen anything like that?
No. Well, there have been protests. And of course, Warwickshire County Council's gone to reform. So I think it's given certain people a licence to be aggressive and to be racist.
Wow, to hear that actually is saddening. And I think what I've just heard is not the case at all. Reform, actually, and Nigel Farage as the leader, has done the most out of any political party, out of any person, to take down the far right, to protect young girls. They think that you going out protesting, that's racist. And that's the world going mad.
As more anti-immigration protests pop up across Britain, councils like Epping have taken legal steps to block asylum seekers being housed in hotels. But if asylum seekers aren't housed in hotels, they may be housed next door, like here in Nuneaton. We've just been invited into a house where asylum seekers live. This used to be a 3-bed house on a terrace road. It's now a house that sleeps 8 people. I spoke to one of the residents here, Javed. We're not using his real name as he asked to stay anonymous. He's from Iran and could only speak Farsi. We used a translation app to speak to him and then had a translator review what he told us. Did you come here on a small boat? And if so, what was that journey like?
I didn't know how to swim, and I was very scared, but they forced me to get on the boat. I had to come here illegally. I had to. I had no other choice.
So why are asylum seekers here in Nuneaton living in residential properties, and how did we get to this point? A few years ago, asylum seekers in Nuneaton were few and far between, in single digits. But by June of this year, that number had surged to 247, none of them in hotels. They're living in dispersal accommodation, in the community, side by side with locals. That works out to 19 asylum seekers per 10,000 people, placing Nuneaton 87th in terms of concentration. It's data that paints a picture of pressure, of change, of a town adjusting to a new reality.
If they want to protest, by all means protest, but there has to be a solution, and I think that solution comes through dialogue, not ranting off, swearing at each other.
In a statement, a spokesperson for the Home Office told Sky News, "This government inherited an asylum system in chaos. We have taken urgent action to fix the system, more than doubling asylum decisions and cutting the backlog by 41%. And the cost of asylum hotels was reduced by almost £1 billion in 2024 to 25. After the incident in the town centre, Zaheen decided not to press charges.
We have to feel accepted in it, included, be part of it.
Joining us now is our political correspondent, Mari Aurora. Mari, the issues laid bare there. The question is, and we'll hear from the Minister in a few moments, what are the government doing about it?
Well, this is the difficulty, is we've had a summer of frustration, protests, you know, a bit of violence, and also obviously some peaceful protests as well. You've seen from Shaman's report there some of the tensions that are bubbling up, and the government have been, to an extent, slightly perhaps on the back foot when it comes to some of this stuff. Felt like Reform were dominating the agenda perhaps more than the government over the summer. And so we have a situation now where Parliament is back, and now Labour's kind of kicking back into gear, and the fight back has begun. So we were talking earlier, there's an article in the Daily Mirror this morning where the PM is accusing Tories of making a mess, accusing Reform of not having the answers and scaremongering. He's doing a radio phone-in, talking to people who are going to ask him questions live on the radio later today. And then we've got a statement from the Home Secretary in the House of Commons this afternoon, and she's going to be talking about changes to border security and also reforming the asylum system, most notably tightening the rules around family reunion. And so that's going to be things like English language requirements, things like access to sufficient funds. The family needs to have a certain amount of cash so they can definitely look after people. The Home Office says it's because there's too much pressure on local authorities where homelessness applications linked to the family reunion route to the UK have risen in recent years, and therefore they say that's not sustainable. So we're going to get more detail from the government, and hopefully from Stephen Morgan in a few minutes as well.
Plenty more to come in politics throughout the course of the morning and the course of the week as Parliament returns after recess. Mari, for the moment, thank you so much. Just an update to bring you on the situation in Afghanistan. Reports say at least 622 people have died, 1,500 people known to have been injured. Those figures expected to rise, though, because the Taliban authorities in the country say that many areas are unable to report the number of killed or injured. Many villages have been completely razed. We're hearing that at least 4 helicopters have taken 30 doctors and 800 kilograms of medicine to the eastern Kunar province. It's been reported that 3 villages have been destroyed there, at least 3 villages. The epicenter of this magnitude 6 quake is being reported by the USGS, United States Geological Service, is Jalalabad. That's a city of around 300,000 people, 74 miles away from the capital, Kabul, and the earthquake has been reported in a much wider area. People reporting feeling the tremor of that magnitude 6 quake. And many of the buildings are said to be built out of mud and wood in the region. Some are built out of stone and concrete, but it's going to be a very challenging rescue and recovery effort for the Taliban authorities. Obviously, one of the poorest countries on the planet, obviously also somewhat isolated in terms of the humanitarian support that can be offered to it following the rise of the Taliban in 2021. But like I say, at least 622 people known to have lost their lives, 1,500 injured, and we're seeing here some of the response from the authorities, at least 4 helicopters taking 30 doctors and 800 kilograms of medicine.
Let's bring viewers up to date on some other stories this Monday as you're waking up. And a suspect has been arrested in the fatal shooting of pro-Western Ukrainian politician Andrei Parabi. President Volodymyr Zelensky has announced the news on social media after Mr Parabi was killed in the city of Lviv on Saturday. The president says the investigation is still ongoing. Elsewhere this morning, the former mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani, has been taken to hospital. This is after a car crash in New Hampshire. His spokesperson said the 81-year-old was hit from behind in the vehicle on Saturday evening and the impact fractured his vertebrae. Digital rail tickets based on GPS tracking are being tested out from today in some parts of England, and it's part of the government's plan to improve the rail fare system. Passengers taking part will pay the best fare for their journey by checking in and out on an app tracking their travel. And Queen Camilla was the victim of an attempted indecent assault as a teenager, and she used the heel of her shoe to fight off the attacker. This is all coming from a new book. According to Power and the Palace, written by the former royal editor of the Times newspaper, Valentine Lowe, the Queen told Boris Johnson, former Prime Minister, about the attack while he was the Mayor of London. It's reported that the Queen was 16 or 17 years old when the incident happened on a train to Paddington Station. Well, let's go to China now, and it's day 2 of a summit involving Russia, India and a host of other nations. Let's go live to our Asia correspondent, Helen Ann Smith. Helen Ann, just bring viewers up to date who are waking up this morning. What do they need to know about this summit and why it's important?
Well, look, you might not have heard of this summit, but it is a gathering of some of the most populous, the most influential, the most powerful countries in this part of the world. And the guest list is such that it sometimes raises some eyebrows in the West. We have leaders here from Russia, from Iran, from Pakistan, from Myanmar, from Belarus, from India. And they are all sharing a table, metaphorically and literally, last night and today, discussing broadly security and development issues. This morning has been the key event, the key leaders meeting, and in all of the staging last night and today, there is absolutely no doubt as to who the guest of honour here is, and that is Vladimir Putin. He was the one who had lingering conversations with President Xi Jinping, the host. He was the one that, alongside Xi, led the other leaders into dinner, and in his speech at that leaders meeting today, some really interesting details. Of course, he focused on his war in Ukraine, the fact that, as he says and has said many times before, that it was not Russia that started it. He says it was a Western-backed coup. But one of the interesting details that I think those in America will be paying attention to is that he did say that he will be briefing other leaders here about what happened in that summit in Alaska with Donald Trump, where Donald Trump was trying to forge that peace. So really putting to bed any hopes that America might have had that the likes of China, etc., will not have the opportunity to weigh in on that matter. So that is really important in this moment. Just a quick note about Xi Jinping's speech as well. You always have to read between the lines with the Chinese speeches. They can be quite wordy, a little difficult to decipher, but there was lots of talk about working against power politics, working against hegemony. No guesses, no secrets as to who that is hinting at. And it's just worth saying that the leaders here don't have an enormous amount in common, but they all do share at least a suspicion, if not outward distaste for Donald Trump and Americanism. And there is a sense that China positioning itself as a new type of global leader here.
Helen Ann Smith joining us live from Tianjin in China. Thank you so much. Time to speak to the government now, joined by the Early Years Education Minister, Stephen Morgan. Good to have you with us. So you join us as we hear this news from Afghanistan. At least 622 people dead, 1,500 injured as a result of that magnitude 6 quake. What, if any, support, considering the challenges with the authorities in Afghanistan, will the UK government be able to provide?
Well, my thoughts are with all those affected. This is obviously tragic news. This morning, we're obviously set out any support that the government will be able to make later today.
Do you have any dialogue or channels of communication with the Taliban authorities?
I'm not aware. Obviously, colleagues in other departments will set out what they may be able to do.
You return to Westminster today. Recess done and dusted. Are you feeling rested, recovered, ready for a new kind of session?
Absolutely, and from today, thousands, hundreds of thousands of more parents will be able to access our childcare entitlement offer. This is a really significant milestone that will benefit children across our country. So really excited to be delivering this today.
Yeah, so 30 hours a week of childcare will be available, up to, what, £9 billion worth of funding next year?
That's absolutely right. So a really significant moment for our country. And I pay tribute to the early years providers that have been working so hard on this. We wanted to deliver this for children across our country, and today is a key milestone in making that happen.
And the Prime Minister's written a pretty substantial opinion piece in the Daily Mirror today and finishes it with the line, "Our drive to deliver national renewal will make every person feel better off and more secure." The challenge for you is, in the eye, 77% of Britons who are polled think that the country's broken to some degree. So what you're saying, what you're trying to do, isn't translating, is it?
Well, the Prime Minister's been really clear we need to go further and faster in delivering change that people voted for last year. What we're doing today, obviously, is increasing the number of hours that parents are entitled to, which will make a real difference in giving children the best start in life. Look at what else we've been doing. We're introducing more eligibility for children to access free school meals from September next year. We're rolling out breakfast clubs in every primary school. We're investing in mental health in schools, a range of things which are saving parents money, but also ensuring that every child, whatever their background, wherever they live in the country, gets the best start in life.
The sense, though, is that the conversation across society this summer has been migration. I think it's fair to say we've seen debate, discourse, anger, even violence. We've seen people arrested, we've seen police officers hurt, we've seen allegations and charges laid as well. Do you feel some sense that the issue has got away from you over the course of the summer? It feels as though, with all due respect, we've heard a lot more from Nigel Farage than we have from the Home Secretary, who's in charge of all of this. You know, Yvette Cooper, her airtime massively diminished compared to the opposition's.
Well, migration is an issue that the Prime Minister is prioritising and is the heart of our government mission. If you look at what we've done in terms of recent activity, 35,000 people have been deported that have no right to remain in the UK. The number of asylum hotels will come down. We're committed to doing that by the end of this Parliament. The asylum claims have been processed, 28% increase. We've deported 4,200 foreign criminals to other countries. That landmark deal we've had with the French, I think, will start to make a real difference in due course. These are complex issues, but there's been good progress and more to do. Yvette Cooper will be saying more about this later today.
She will, and she'll tout some figures about the National Crime Agency trying to smash the gangs, as the Prime Minister has said. But then the challenge is the figures you've put out, always there's a flip side to them, isn't there? You know, small boat arrivals up until pretty much the end of August, 28,000. This time last year, 18,000. The average number of people per boat at its highest level ever on record. It's an issue that is getting bigger and bigger, if in no other sense, in how people perceive it.
Well, the White Paper sets out our ambitions on these issues. Yvette Cooper will say more later today. I absolutely understand people's frustration across the country. There's more for us to do, and I know that Yvette Cooper will lead on that work brilliantly.
The frustrations, though, aren't helped, are they? And you must have found this a bit of a bind, surely. And Bridget Phillipson was talking about this yesterday with Trevor Phillips. You know, for the public to see government lawyers arguing to keep migrant hotels, the one in the Bell in Epping, in this case, open, when that's not what the public are telling you they want to see. That's a real challenge for you on a PR sense, if nothing else, to say we're determined by the end of this Parliament, 2029, to close these hotels. But in the meantime, let us just argue to keep them open and keep them running.
Well, we're working really closely with local authorities. We're really keen to make sure we understand the challenges that communities are facing. The costs of asylum hotels have come down under us. They were almost £9 million a day. They're now just over £5 million a day. There's more action that is required, and obviously the Home Secretary will set out more details later today.
Did you see, I don't know if you saw Shaman's report at the top of the programme, but this is Shaman Freeman-Powell. She's on the streets interviewing an individual, and they are surrounded all of a sudden by a group of young people hurling abuse. She herself is being questioned as to her heritage. There is, within a second, within an instant, a flashpoint of discontent, of aggression, of what could, it didn't, but what could have easily kind of spilled into some degree of violence or fracas. How have we got to that point in 2025 where, you know, a simple street interview with a journalist and a contributor is now pulling in people who are hurling abuse. You can't be comfortable with that, surely.
No, absolutely. And as my former colleague Jo Cox says, we have more in common than that which divides us. And it's really important that we understand communities' frustrations, but also take action to deliver the change that people voted for last July.
This is all good sentiments, Minister, but it's not translating, is it? You know, on social media the other day, a takeaway that's completely covered with graffiti and telling people to go home, and, you know, people who are shouting at each other in the streets. This is Britain in 2025, and for years governments have talked about the strength of multiculturalism, but now that is under threat. You know, people want to see real action now, not only to deal with migration, but also to deal with the psyche of the nation in parts. You know, what can you say you will do today, tomorrow and next week that will deliver concrete change?
Well, I'm proud to be part of a government that is a mission-driven government that wants to bring about change in our country. On my brief, I've set out some of the things that we're doing to ease the pressures on parents and deliver meaningful change for children and young people across our country. The Prime Minister wants us to go further and faster. That's what we're delivering to make sure we fix the foundations of our economy and restore public services and drive growth in our country. And that's what we're going to be doing as Parliament returns today.
The perpetual thorn on your side, the world's richest man, is once again passing comment on the situation here. Elon Musk saying, and I paraphrase, but effectively, from his perspective, a country's government that puts the interests of migrants over its own people is treasonous and treacherous. What's your response to that? Because he's got a huge voice, and a lot of people, I'm afraid to say, will probably be slightly nodding.
Well, as I said, we're getting on delivering what we've committed to doing. We understand people's frustrations across the country. The Home Secretary was saying more later today on our ambitions with the White Paper. But, you know, the public asked us to bring about change last year. That's
so
exactly what we're getting on
delivering.
delivering.
Elon. You don't care what he has to say.
I'm more focused on what the British public want and the change that they want to see, and that means accessing public services, accessing GPs and dentists, delivering what we're delivering for children across our country. A really exciting milestone met today, and I thank the sector for getting us to this important milestone.
Many parents will echo that, I'm sure. Stephen Morgan, good to have you with us. Thank you so much. Still to come on The Breakfast Show, we're going to bring you more on that breaking news from Afghanistan. At least 622 people known to have lost their lives, 1,500 known to be injured. More to come after the break.
Hear that whistle and that crunch. We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury.
I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides.
and it's moving this way.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos, analysis up at 6%. Podcasts, watching us live. Joins us live all in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
You're watching Breakfast on Sky News. Let's bring you more on the breaking news this morning. Afghanistan's state-run broadcaster says that a strong earthquake in eastern Afghanistan has killed at least 622 people and injured at least 1,500 others.
Yeah, that number's likely to increase as the day goes on. Sadia Chowdhury joins us now with the very latest. So this happened in eastern Afghanistan. Sadia, what more do we know?
So 622 is the current official figure, but that is likely to increase. As we know, this is now a search and rescue mission to try and find anyone that is still under the rubble. And the suspicion is that there are many, many more people in such circumstances. The earthquake happened around midnight last night at a time when many people would have already gone to bed, especially children. And there are reports, one report that says that in one village, 30 people alone were killed. And so indications like that can suggest that that death toll that we're hearing of 622 likely to increase. There you go. We go. Some footage coming through. We know that helicopters are being used to ferry people from rubble to safety, and resident soldiers, medics, all involved in this rescue operation. Some of the other pictures that we've seen show houses destroyed, homes completely reduced to rubble, people on stretchers waiting to receive treatment, and others out in the middle of the night looking for loved ones. Afghanistan is one of the world's poorest, financially poorest countries and highly vulnerable to natural disasters. And this quake happened just very close to Jalalabad, which is the 5th largest city in the country in Nangarhar province. It's about 74 miles, as you say, east of the capital city in Kabul. And in fact, over there, they felt the shock, but they also felt the shock in buildings in Pakistan's capital, Islamabad, which is around 74 miles from Kabul, 186 miles from where the earthquake happened. Jalalabad is a mountainous region with very difficult access. It has lots of remote areas, and particularly now it's in a season where there are hurricanes at night, there are thunderstorms, and we know that over the weekend there was flash flooding there, which affected around 400 families. So that just gives you an idea of the kind of place this earthquake happened in and the sort of conditions that rescue workers are having to deal with. We know that comms have been down in that area. Communication is difficult to access and establish. And also the roads around there have been affected by landslides as a result of the flooding already. And those roads are key to any aid efforts, especially routes that are coming in from Pakistan as well. So no doubt all of that will be affected by the earthquake now. And there is a call for humanitarian organisations to try and come and help out, especially because of the disputed traffic and in areas which are now only accessible by air. So a magnitude 6 earthquake that struck last night with tremors felt nearly 200 miles away, a number of aftershocks. We know currently 622 dead, 1,000 injured, but we expect that number to rise as this search and rescue mission continues.
Yes, there's more online, and just pulling together some of the emergency response from the Afghan Red Crescent as well. They say they've sent people there as well. More details to come in the coming hours here on Breakfast. Let's bring in Lord Ricketts, the UK government's first national security advisor. My Lord, good to have you with us. You know Afghanistan well. Just talk to us, if you will, for a few seconds about the challenges of supporting the country at a time like this.
Yes, well, as you've been hearing, this is in a very remote part of a country which is already poor, where communications are difficult. It will be up in the sharp, jagged hills right in the east of the country. I've flown across them many times when visiting British troops stationed around Afghanistan. It is quite close to the Pakistan border, and I guess we have to look to the Pakistanis in the first place to try and get emergency aid in. I suspect helicopters will be pretty much the only way to deliver aid in the first days until roads can be restored. But Afghanistan has many, many challenges already without having to cope with a major earthquake like this. Now, I'm sure humanitarian agencies around the world, including in the UK, will be looking to see what they can do in this region, what resources they have near enough to get in quickly. But it's the regional neighbours, I think, that we have to look to in the first place for the immediate humanitarian response there.
We were also keen to speak to you about the situation in Beijing, and China more generally, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. Xi Jinping pulling in a slew of world leaders, most notably, I think it's fair to say, India's Narendra Modi, the first time he's visited the country in about 7 or so years. Talk to us, if you will, about this grouping that Beijing has pulled together and the significance of doing so now in August 25.
It's an organization that the Chinese have been working to build up for years as a kind of separate pole from a Western-dominated international order, a grouping which they can largely dominate. But the coup for Xi Jinping, as you say, is to get Indian Premier Modi there. They fought a vicious squabble, not a war, but quite a major military operation on that high glacier in the Himalayas where they share a border in 2020. Since then, Modi has not had a lot to do with China, has not visited. Now he's been pushed into the arms of China effectively by Donald Trump, who has imposed tariffs on India for buying Russian oil, which is, I think, gone down extremely badly in Delhi. Also, the Chinese have been busy supporting other countries in the region, and he's got a very good collection of neighbours there. Countries that you wouldn't normally see at the same summit. India and Pakistan, for example, many countries from the anti-Western camp, but also Turkey, a member of NATO. So it's a very mixed group, and it's largely pulled together by dislike of Trump's assertive America First policies and a generalized feeling that the West is not a friend of theirs, that the international order that we've lived under has been pro-Western, an excuse to meddle, to condemn them for human rights abuses. And this is a grouping that is loosely united by that, not by much else, but comes at a very good time for Xi Jinping.
I'm just seeing, my lord, some comments between President Putin and Narendra Modi that are being reported live as you and I are talking. Putin saying that Russia and India are closely coordinating efforts at an international level. Meanwhile, Narendra Modi is saying that the India-Russian close cooperation is critical, not just for both countries, but for global peace and security, and that they've moved forward together in the toughest of circumstances. Despite all of the attempts that Donald Trump has made to put pressure on India, it sounds as though he's looking fairly weak at the moment.
Well, I think it's precisely because Trump has been putting pressure on India that you get that. Of course, the Indians are absolutely adept at trying to be everyone's friend. I mean, for years, the Americans have been courting the Indians. They brought them into a forum they call the Quad with the Australians and Japanese, which is essentially to stand up against Chinese efforts to dominate in Asia. That's been very much set back by this. The Indians are very happy to take Russian oil at cheap prices, Russian weapons, and now they've also mended their relationship with China. They're never going to be close friends. They're wary and often competitive with each other, but this puts India in a very comfortable position, having good, effective relations with both the Russians and the Chinese, and sending a very strong message to Trump, reminding him that India has other options. I don't think that they will completely cut their ties with the Americans. It's far too big a trade relationship and a strategic relationship for that. But it's a very strong reminder to Trump that his pressure on countries like India are pushing together a coalition of countries who want to have a different approach, who, as China would say, see a different international order, not one, by the way, that seems to make any effort to settle crises like the war in Ukraine or the conflict in Gaza. It's very much a group of countries who want to be left alone, do not want to be preached at by the Western countries, but equally aren't prepared to share any of the burden of trying to settle the wider set of international crises in the world.
Joining us live from South London, Lord Ricketts, good to have you with us. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, with all that in mind, let's hear from our economics and data editor, Ed Conway, on how changing geopolitics is shaping global trade, including the war in Ukraine.
What are the long-term consequences of war in Ukraine that might well stretch beyond the borders of Europe? Because there are potentially some of them. And if you look at the nations that are meeting here, so obviously, we're familiar with the big groupings of nations around the world. You've got the G7, which includes the UK and France and the US and Canada. You've got other nations like other groupings like NATO, for instance. Well, this is one that most people, or many people, certainly in Europe, haven't necessarily heard of, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And if you look at the members of it, so you've got China, not unexpectedly, they really kind of led on this, but also Russia, places like Mongolia and Afghanistan are observant nations, and then you've got India. So that's kind of perhaps the most interesting thing, India joining this grouping recently. And if you look at the global map, you see that for a lot of people in this is seen as an alternative economic grouping that brings together some of these big ascendant economic forces. And they're obviously meeting in Tianjin. One of the backdrops to this is that before Ukraine was invaded, if you look at exports from the G7 to Russia, that's the dark blue line, and exports from China to Russia, they were more or less rising in lockstep with each other. But since that invasion, there's been a real divergence. So Chinese exports to Russia have gone through the roof. G7 exports have basically gone to the floor because they've been sanctions. They don't send stuff as much to Russia. And if you look at stuff that's coming out of Russia and going to other nations, well, there's another striking disparity since the invasion of Ukraine, which is kind of where that line is at the moment. So this is where India gets its oil from. Previously, it was Saudi, it was Iraq, it was the US. Russia, which is the red bit there, was basically nowhere to be seen. And look at what happens after the invasion of Ukraine. So places like Europe said, we're not taking any Russian oil anymore. Then India says, OK, we're going to snap that up. And a lot of Russian oil now going to Indian refineries. In fact, Russia is one of the biggest suppliers of oil, the single biggest in terms of nations, to India. So it's a massive shift in economic relationships there. And the US has said as a result of this, well, we're thinking of imposing extra tariffs on India. And what would that look like? Well, this is showing you the tariff levels across the world. So there's Japan, South Korea, this tariffs imposed by the US on other countries. There's India, 25%. There's China, higher than that. And then you've got Laos and Myanmar. If you're going to impose secondary tariffs on India, so raising that tariff level, look at what happens to this bar. It goes up to 50%. And actually, India ends up being the most tariff nation, or one of the most tariff nations in the world. And that is perhaps part of the explanation for why you're seeing India and President Xi there and Prime Minister Modi from India, why you're seeing India, which has long been at loggerheads with China, why you're seeing these countries coming together economically. It is a massive seismic moment for the global economy if that turns out to be one of the consequences, unexpected consequences, of war in Ukraine.
As ever, plenty more of Ed's incredible reporting online and on the Sky News YouTube channel as well. Now then, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, has just returned back from a week-long visit to Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Pleased to say, joins us now from Geneva. Thank you for sharing your time. Just before we get on to that trip, just interested in your thoughts and concerns regarding Afghanistan, the developing situation there.
Very tragic. We have very little information as of yet, but already reports of hundreds of people killed and many more made homeless. That's a country that is already suffering from a multiplicity of crises. There's a big drought. Iran has sent back almost 2 million people. Pakistan threatens to do the same with Afghans living there. And of course, it's extremely difficult to mobilize resources because of the Taliban. So it's a perfect storm. And this earthquake, likely to have been quite devastating, is going to just add to the misery. So strong appeal to all those who can help to please do that.
Like we say, you've returned from the DRC and Rwanda following that week-long visit. Describe to us the situation you found there, because this follows years of conflict and violence.
30 years of conflict and violence that have affected terribly people in eastern Congo. There's a little window of opportunity now, maybe bigger, maybe smaller, we don't know yet. There's been a political agreement sponsored by the United States in Washington at the end of June, and this is between Congo and Rwanda. And then within Congo, there is a peace process sponsored by the Qatari government in Doha between the government and the rebel forces M23 that control now the east of the country. So we must hope that these processes come to fruition, give some result, because it's an exhausted area where violations continue and violence continues to affect hundreds of thousands of people, including many who are internally displaced.
You mentioned there the US-sponsored political agreement in June. In July, your colleague Volker Turk, the High Commissioner for Human Rights, condemned a surge of deadly violence that had followed that political agreement at the highest level. How concerned are you that agreements between prime ministers and leaders won't actually work its way down to the people who are being affected or the people who are perpetrating that violence?
It's an issue of concern, of course, but the second, let's call it, peace process, the Doha process, is very important. That followed by a few weeks the Washington agreement. And that's, as I said, between Congolese, between the government and the M23. I actually met both in Congo. I met the government, of course, in Kinshasa. I met the leadership of the M23 in Goma. It's a very difficult process because there's so much baggage, so much history, so many ethnic land-related issues that plague the area, but there is still, I would say, an opening, a commitment to carry on that process. So really, a big appeal to the international community, to those who have influence, to continue to push the parties to stay the course in this difficult process.
You spoke to the UN Security Council earlier this year and talked of a season of war, a time of crisis, that the fact that violence was the defining currency of our age. What should our viewers take away from the world as they see it at the moment, from the situation in Ukraine to the situation in Gaza to the violence you described between the DRC and Rwanda? It paints a pretty chilling picture. Can that be turned around?
I hope it will, but clearly sitting where I sit, the landscape is grim. And it is not only the multiplicity of conflicts, it's the way these conflicts are carried out in total disregard for civilians, for the laws of war. I recently posted about cities that have become symbols of that, like Gaza, of course, more than any other one, perhaps, but also Kharkiv in Ukraine, or El Fasher in Sudan, or even Goma in Eastern Congo. These are symbols of how not only the lives of civilians are disregarded, but civilians are targeted, have become the usual target of conflicts in order to occupy territory, plunder resources, and take political control. If this is not turned around, we will live in an increasingly dangerous world.
UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, joining us from Geneva. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Still to come on The Breakfast Show here on Sky News. It's transfer deadline day. We'll be joined by football writer Jonathan Wilson coming up next.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war.
This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away.
So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Bangkok.
These slums, once gripped by fear and death.
There is far less bloodshed now, but it hasn't gone away.
Who's asking you to kill?
The police will give me the orders, and after I kill the target, I throw the gun away.
We try our best to uncover and unpick a fast-changing and deeply complex region.
These large waterways provided an excellent source of body disposal.
This is the Buriganga River, where victims who'd allegedly been shot dead were dumped.
Sheikh Hasina, how confident are you that she will stand trial?
She will stand trial, there's no doubt about that.
We're going to take you to the very heart of a criminal network, going undercover inside Southeast Asia's scam centres for the very first time.
We won't have any problems with police, it's okay.
Just seen Imran Khan leave, and as we understand it, he's just been shot in the leg.
They have decided that the only way they'll allow elections is if I'm inside jail or killed.
Sky News get the full story first.
Chinese vessels start encircling the boat we're on, blocking its path.
The Chinese are now deploying water cannons, firing it directly towards our boat. We've discovered doctors across Delhi dishing out pills like this, claiming they will provide a lifelong cure for homosexuality.
Rohingya people fleeing an escalating civil war.
The situation here in Cox's is desperate. An already insecure place does feel a lot more precarious.
I'm David Blevins, and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent. I've spent 30 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace. The end of the political stalemate, the start of a new chapter for Northern Ireland. Catholics and Protestants now facing the same threat.
If we both contract COVID-19, religion's nothing.
Sky News, the full story first.
Just gone 10 to 8. You're watching Breakfast on Sky News, and significant day.
Oh, it's transfer deadline day, my favourite day in the English Premier League. It's a big deal, isn't it? Because one line that we are hearing about is that Alexander Isak has made that move from Newcastle to Liverpool, record fee of £125 million. Let's get the latest on this. We're joined this morning by podcaster and football writer Jonathan Wilson. Great to have you with us. How excited are you about this Isak deal?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, this has been the tale of the summer. Really from when the window opened in July, there's been a lot of strikers moving. We've seen, this has really been the summer of a number 9, and Isak has been the biggest of those deals. I think it's slightly odd that it hasn't been done before now, but as we get into the last, it was 16 hours before the deadline, they have finally reached agreement on the fee.
Yeah, on a personal level, Jonathan, what have you made about the move from Newcastle to Liverpool? Because, as you said, there was an opportunity earlier in the transfer window to do this. Newcastle denied that chance, discrepancies over the fee. But it's been a bit of a fallout, hasn't there?
To be honest, I don't think anybody's come out of this particularly well. I'm not sure why Liverpool didn't push harder earlier. I think it would have helped them in terms of settling the squad, settling the team down. And we've seen they've been quite disjointed, although they've won the first 3 games of the season. I think they would have benefited from having him earlier. I don't think Isak's behaved particularly well in effectively going on strike, refusing to train with the rest of the team in trying to push through the deal. But I really don't understand why Newcastle didn't act earlier. Sure, there's some haggling over the fee, but it would have helped them to get the money in. They lost Callum Wilson as well in the summer, to bring in the 2 strikers they needed, rather than scrabbling around on the final day to perhaps bring in Johan Wissa.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see how he fits into that squad. Their first game with him is against Burnley. Shall we look back, rewind to yesterday's Liverpool match against Arsenal? Your opinion then, Jonathan, goal of the season, contender for goal of the season?
Oh, if you put it in the context of the game, yes, absolutely stunning goal. And I think, again, you see Arne Slot's remarkable capacity to... He's just got this golden touch that Liverpool have not played well so far this season, but the first 2 games, his substitutes got the goals to put him back ahead. This game, as a player, he's moved to right back, who's not naturally a right back, who then, he set up the goal against Newcastle, the winner against Newcastle, and then scores that absolutely stunning free kick. So Liverpool definitely have the advantage at the moment, and I think perhaps Arsenal will think they missed an opportunity against an opponent who had looked vulnerable.
Moving on to Man City, 2 defeats in 3. What do you think this says about Pep Guardiola and his outlook?
Well, we saw last season they were really struggling, and I think the question was, could all the players they brought in, both in January then in the summer, how quickly could they bed in? Is Guardiola himself beginning to feel a little fatigue? Was this challenge going to rejuvenate him? And to be honest, yesterday at Brighton, they were better side for an hour, and then Brighton made 4 substitutions after 61 minutes, and suddenly the game changed. And what was remarkable was, firstly, how City couldn't respond to that, and secondly, how they keep on getting done by this same ball in behind the back four. It's cost them already this season. It was costing them last season. It cost them against Al Hilal in the Club World Cup, and that is a big problem for them.
Sunderland back in the top flight, Jonathan. This is pretty encouraging, isn't it? What's your take there?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen over the last 2 seasons that each of the 3 promoted sides have gone down. This season, all 3 have already got a win within 3 games. Sunderland have got 2 wins. The fixtures has been kind. So the teams have beaten West Ham and Brentford, 2 teams who I think probably will be bottom half this season. But still, there is at least a sense this season that teams coming up from the Championship can compete in the Premier League. There's tougher tests ahead, but Sunderland probably needs to get points on the board, and they now have 6 from 9. They lie, and for what it's worth at this stage of the season, they lie 6th in the table.
Yeah, great to get your take, Jonathan. You must be a happy man being a Sunderland fan this morning too. Thank you.
Very happy, thank you.
Just coming up to 8 o'clock here on Sky News, just an update on the situation in Afghanistan. 622 people known to have died, 1,500 injured. And Filippo Grandi, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, also pointing out Iran returning 2 million people in recent weeks and months to the country. So a huge logistical challenge to try and support those affected.
Yeah, and the weather will be a big challenge too. Also in the next few days.
Very much so. We're hearing that helicopters have taken at least 30 doctors, 800 kilograms of medicine so far to one province. Reports of entire villages being razed as well. This was a magnitude 6 quake. Yeah, and it's sometimes the shallow quakes that cause the most disruption. It was just before midnight when people would have been sound asleep in their beds, and the worry is now how the aid will get to some of those very remote villages that have been destroyed and wiped out. We'll bring you plenty more on this story on Sky News, plenty more as well on the Sky News website and apps. Do stick with us here on Breakfast for the full story first.
Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming.
I'm Deborah Hames, Sky Security and Defence Editor. Should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real.
Very good morning to you. It is 8 o'clock. We start with breaking news this morning. At least 622 people have been killed in an earthquake in Afghanistan.
Also ahead, trying to get a grip of the asylum crisis, the Home Secretary will make a statement to MPs today announcing tighter rules on appeals.
And it's transfer deadline day. We'll be outside Anfield for the latest on Alexander Isak's record-breaking transfer from Newcastle to Liverpool.
Sports, politics, news all to come on Monday, the 1st of September. At least 622 people are dead and 1,300 injured in an earthquake in Afghanistan. We have a special report on the divisions over asylum that are pulling communities apart.
Yeah, no, we should... Can you not see we talking?
Plus, this image of a new world order. China, India and Russia promise to be partners, not rivals. And Liverpool set to sign Alexander Isak from Newcastle for a British record fee. Very good morning to you. We start with breaking news. Afghanistan's Taliban-run Interior Ministry have said that at least 622 people have been killed in an earthquake in the east of the country. At least 1,300 others have also been injured. The quake's epicenter was in the east of the country near the city of Jalalabad, which is approximately 74 miles away from Afghanistan's capital, Kabul. Well, let's bring in Sadia.
Yeah, Sadia, obviously this story will change. The numbers involved will obviously change too. But what's the very latest as you know it?
Look, just a number of hours ago, state media were reporting 500 deaths. Then that very quickly rose to 622. We know this is now an active search and rescue mission, so we expect that number to increase, even more so because this earthquake happened in the middle of the night, just before midnight, at a time when a lot of people would have already gone to bed. And so, as you can see now, some pictures coming in of just the type of rescue effort that this is. And you can see from these pictures, it doesn't seem like a massively coordinated response. It is basically residents, medics, soldiers, anyone that can getting involved. There were unconfirmed reports that in one village alone, 30 people were killed, and that gives you an indication of the sort of death toll we might see in the coming hours and days. And from the pictures, we can see that helicopters have been involved in moving people from rubble to safety. We've seen pictures of people on stretchers waiting for medical treatment, others out in the middle of the night looking for loved ones. Of course, now it is daytime and that rescue operation continuing. Afghanistan is one of the world's poorest countries and highly vulnerable to natural disasters. And it is the quake happened near the country's 5th largest city, which is Jalalabad. And that's about 74 miles from Kabul, which is the capital city. And people there reported that they felt the tremor from there. But we also have reports of people from Islamabad, which is Pakistan's capital city, which is 186 miles away, and reports that the shock could be felt there also.
And just looking at the map of this area, it is incredibly, it doesn't really make it evident on that one, but incredibly mountainous. This is on the edge of the Nuneaton National Park. And in winter, bedecked in snow, but in summer, still a very difficult place to try and bring aid and access and recovery efforts to.
Yeah, Jalalabad is a very mountainous region and has lots of very, very remote areas. It is also currently experiencing thunderstorms. And so over the weekend, there was flash flooding there with 400 families affected. That is according to the IOM. This will also no doubt impact the aid and rescue work that is going on. Communication in that part of the country is already limited and even harder to establish now, given all the flash flooding that's happened over the weekend. So getting news back from the teams who are on the ground is proving to be extremely difficult. There is now a call from the government and others for humanitarian organisations to get involved, especially in those areas which are now only accessible by air. And we've heard from the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, this morning. Have a listen to what he said.
That's a country that is already suffering from a multiplicity of crises. There's a big drought. Iran has sent back almost 2 million people. Pakistan threatens to do the same with Afghans living there. And of course, it's extremely difficult to mobilize resources because of the Taliban. So it's a perfect storm. And this earthquake, likely to have been quite devastating, is going to just add to the miseries.
Well, yeah, we've heard about how difficult those rescue operations are already proving because of the landslides, which have damaged the infrastructure in the area and also disrupted traffic between Pakistan and Afghanistan, which are crucial routes for any aid to get in. And just to give you a comparison, in 2023, Afghanistan had a 6.3 magnitude earthquake. And at that time, the World Health Organization estimated that there were 1,482 deaths and 114,000 people were left in need of aid. Hospitals are completely overwhelmed and thousands were made homeless as the winter months approached. So this one last night, a 6 magnitude earthquake with tremors felt nearly 200 miles away, a number of aftershocks, hundreds feared dead, thousands possibly injured, homes destroyed, and now a very, very slow-moving and difficult rescue mission ongoing.
Sadia, for the moment, thank you so much. Our colleagues at our digital desk also pulling together plenty of reporting. You can get it for yourselves on the Sky News website and app, the live page running there. It's just gone 6 minutes past 8 on a Monday morning. First day of autumn as well. That's come round quick, too quick, in fact. But on the first day of autumn also brings back Parliament, and the government will set out plans to improve border security and reform asylum appeal systems later today.
Yeah, we'll have more from Mari in a moment, but first let's just give you a flavour of Shaman Freeman-Powell's special report from Nuneaton. It's a town that's become one of the flashpoints of the migration debate. Take a look.
Here in Nuneaton, tensions around immigration are running high.
They're more kids. No, mate. More kids and more country. That's the issue we have in our country.
I'm used to this conflict.
No, but that's
my...
No one should be used to that.
The country is not safe, but my country now, I'm safe. I want to go back.
Were you born in England?
I was born in England, yeah.
People tend to have a very wrong perception of the numbers, and this is partly because the whole issue has become so politicised.
So I think it's given certain people a licence to be aggressive and to be racist.
Wow, to hear that actually is saddening, and I think what I've just heard is not the case at all.
This is our country. How about becoming your country behind your kids? Never going to happen.
Yeah,
never going to happen, mate.
And you can watch Shaman's full report. It's on the Sky News website and app right now. Mari's here. This is what we saw over the summer, whether it was arguments about flags, whether it was protests outside asylum hotels. But the thread through it all is, what's the plan from the government?
Yeah, so we've seen a mixed reaction over the summer, but it has really dominated the news agenda the entire summer recess. To an extent, Labour perhaps slightly on the back foot on that. And so we've got the first day back from the summer recess, PM's back from his holiday in Croatia, and he is beginning to try and kind of re-grip the agenda when it comes to migration. So he's got an article in the Mirror criticising Reform and the Tories. He's doing a radio phone-in later today as well, taking live questions from members of the public. And then the Home Secretary will be front and centre because she'll be giving a statement to the House of Commons later today. And she's going to be talking about changes to border security, but also reforms to the asylum system, most notably the family reunion scheme for refugees and asylum seekers. So at the moment, if you're granted asylum status, you can then ask for your family to be brought over to you. Now, Yvette Cooper believes that we are a bit behind in terms of policy on that. She wants us to kind of catch up with some of our European allies and tighten up some of those rules. So families will need to meet a perhaps slightly tougher criteria. I've been going through the immigration white paper, and what we know so far is that there's going to be English language level requirements, and also the family who are wanting their family to come over would need to have sufficient funds as well. to be able to afford to look after them. And this is because the Home Office says that they need to relieve pressure on local authorities where homelessness applications linked to the route have risen in recent years. That's their justification.
Mari, for the moment, thank you so much. Let's just remind you of some of the developing stories today. That is the situation in Afghanistan, a magnitude 6 quake that struck the country at around midnight local time. You can see here some of the initial recovery efforts. It's estimated, thought at least, that 622 people have been killed, 1,300 to 1,500 people have been injured in that quake. It follows pretty torrential weather as well in the region, incredibly mountainous, incredibly difficult to access. 3 villages at least reported to have been completely razed as a result of this natural disaster. We'll follow these developments closely, as too will politicians here in the UK. Well, we're joined by Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, who's with us here on Breakfast on Sky News. Your initial thoughts to the situation in Afghanistan. The UK will be keen to support civilians, but it's hard considering who's in charge.
I mean, first of all, my thoughts go out to the families affected, the men, women and children who have lost their homes and lost their lives as well. They've got to be at the front of our minds. And yes, you're right, we should do everything we can to help. Obviously difficult with the Taliban in charge, but within that constraint and obviously making sure we don't end up giving them any money inadvertently, we should be doing everything we can to just practically help on the ground, because when you get a humanitarian crisis like this, I think the whole world, including the UK, should definitely step up and help.
With that in mind, just thinking your comment about funding or funds entering the hands of the Taliban, would you prefer to see then efforts going into humanitarian organisations already operating there rather than the government entity of Afghanistan?
Yes, definitely. I mean, one of the ways you can try and make sure that aid money does not end up in the hands of bad organisations, whether it's the Taliban in Afghanistan or Hamas in Gaza, giving the money to aid organisations to give practical aid directly to civilians, definitely the best way of doing it.
End of recess. Back to work today. You ready? You looking forward to pretty busy time in politics at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, raring to go. When my alarm went off at 5 o'clock this morning, a smile flooded across my face at the prospect of the new autumn term. But I have been busy over the summer as well. I've been out on the Channel looking at the Labour's migrant crisis. I went out to Calais and went round the migrant camp near Dunkirk, talking to the illegal immigrants directly. Somebody pulled a machete on us, and then we got pelted with bottles while we were there. So I've been out and about this summer finding out what's happening on the ground with this migrant crisis.
You describe it as Labour's migrant crisis. Is it not fair to say it's the country's migrant crisis? Because it's a challenge your party had as well during your time in office.
Yes, it is. The small boats did start 4 or 5 years ago. But I would say in the last full year the Conservatives were in government, 2023, the boat numbers came down by 30%. And there was a plan to stop it completely by sending people crossing the Channel to Rwanda. But Labour, very foolishly, cancelled that plan just days before it started with no replacement. And as a result, the numbers crossing the Channel now are the worst in history. It's gone up 40% compared to last year, and this year is the highest ever. And I do wonder, actually, when Keir Starmer's asleep at night, you know, in a cold sweat at 2 o'clock in the morning, I wonder if secretly he regrets cancelling that Rwanda plan with no replacement.
You say he foolishly cancelled the plan. He would say, I'm sure if he was here, that Rishi Sunak foolishly called a general election before the plan was even tested in the first place.
Well, I do agree that election should have been held later. I agree with that.
And he would also say, and he would point to the figures that Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, will cite today, that this has been the best August in recent years, and so that there has been some improvement in the situation.
That is desperate stuff. They're saying there have been fewer boats, but that's because the boats have more people. One of those boats that crossed in August had 107 people. Look, if you take the year to date, OK, rather than cherry-picking the number of boats in 1 month, year to date, 29,000 illegal immigrants. That is the worst in history. Their claim to have smashed the gangs is, frankly, laughable. Everyone knows it. The government are not treating this as a crisis, and that is why people are getting angry up and down the country. It's why we're seeing protests, because the government is not listening. You had government lawyers last week and the Education Secretary yesterday saying they thought the rights of illegal immigrants are more important than the rights of local people in places like Epping. I think that is disgraceful, and when our own government says that, you know what? No wonder people are getting angry.
those interviews on Trevor Phillips' show on Sky News yesterday. The Prime Minister, in his opinion article in the Mirror today, says Reform and the Tories are talking down the country at every turn. We're doing the work to make people's lives better, and accuses the opposition, let's be honest, of scaremongering from the sidelines. He would say that everything you've just said there is scaremongering from the sidelines.
Well, nonsense. I mean, he refers to talking down the country. He is doing down the country with his actions. Keir Starmer is the man who has lost control of our borders. He's the one presiding over a migration crisis. He's the one saying he thinks the rights of illegal immigrants are more important than local people. He's the one that slapped on the biggest tax rise in a generation. He's the Prime Minister delivering unemployment that goes up every single month. He's the one who's presided over inflation doubling, and it's his Chancellor and Keir Starmer who are going to no doubt slap us all with more tax rises in the budget in a few months' time. So he's got a cheek. He is, frankly, destroying our country with his terrible economic policies, with his massive tax rises, and the fact he can't control our borders and doesn't even recognise that it's a crisis and doesn't even realise why people are so angry about this.
You said you were raring to go for the start of the new term in office. I get that sense from you, Chris. But, 2018, 299 arrivals via small boats, Conservatives in office. 2022, 45,744. There was a crisis at the hands of the Conservatives too. And, you point out that at this point in the year, the levels are at the highest ever. It's probably unlikely that they'll reach levels seen under your party.
Well, as I say, this year is on track to be the worst ever. And, from that peak in 2022, I think you just said, we got it down by a third the next year. We had a plan to remove every single person who crossed the English Channel illegally, ready to go July of last year, but Keir Starmer cancelled it. So we did treat it in government as a crisis. Our measures were working, but Keir Starmer very foolishly cancelled that plan with no replacement. He had some gimmicks like claiming we're going to smash the gangs. It hasn't worked. It's now the worst ever, and people are understandably very, very angry with Keir Starmer and the Labour Party. We're tabling practical solutions. We tabled a deportation bill in Parliament just a few weeks ago to fix this problem by making sure everybody who crosses the Channel is deported. That will act as a deterrent. People won't bother trying to cross if they know they're going to get deported. But Labour voted it down. So we are being, and frankly, if they've got any sense, they will pick up that deportation bill that we tabled and they will pass it as emergency legislation. And you know what? If they did that, we would support it.
We'll follow that closely. Chris Philp, for the moment, thank you so much. Some of the day's other stories.
Thanks, Gareth. Yeah, let's take a look at some other stories making news this Monday for you. And a suspect has been arrested in the fatal shooting of pro-Western Ukrainian politician Andrei Parabi. President Volodymyr Zelensky has announced the news on social media. This was after Mr. Parabi was killed in the city of Lviv on Saturday. The president says an investigation is still ongoing. The former mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani, has been taken to hospital. This is after a car crash in New Hampshire. His spokesperson said the 81-year-old was hit from behind on Saturday evening and the impact fractured his vertebrae. He's expected to be released from hospital in the next few days. And Queen Camilla was the victim of an attempted indecent assault as a teenager and used the heel of her shoe to fight off the attacker. This is all coming from claims in a new book. According to Power and the Palace, written by the former royal editor of the Times newspaper, Valentine Lowe, the Queen told Boris Johnson about the attack when he was Mayor of London. It's reported that the Queen was 16 or 17 years old when it happened on a train to Paddington Station. Well, let's go to China now. A two-day summit involving Russia, India and a host of other nations. Our Asia correspondent Helen Ansmith is in Tianjin with the latest.
Well, look, you might not have heard of this summit, but it is a gathering of some of the most populous, the most influential, the most powerful countries in this part of the world. And the guest list is such that it sometimes raises some eyebrows in the West. We have leaders here from Russia, from Iran, from Pakistan, from Myanmar, from Belarus, from India. And they are all sharing a table, metaphorically and literally, last night and today, discussing broadly security and development issues. This morning has been the key event, the key leaders meeting, and in all of the staging last night and today, there is absolutely no doubt as to who the guest of honour here is, and that is Vladimir Putin. He was the one who had lingering conversations with President Xi Jinping, the host. He was the one that, alongside Xi, led the other leaders into dinner, and in his speech at that leaders meeting today, some really interesting details. Of course, he focused on his war in Ukraine, the fact that, as he says and has said many times before, that it was not Russia that started it. He says it was a Western-backed coup. But one of the interesting details that I think those in America will be paying attention to is that he did say that he will be briefing other leaders here about what happened in that summit in Alaska with Donald Trump, where Donald Trump was trying to forge that peace. So really putting to bed any hopes that America might have had that the likes of China, etc., will not have the opportunity to weigh in on that matter. So that is really important in this moment. Just a quick note about Xi Jinping's speech as well. You always have to read between the lines with the Chinese speeches. They can be quite wordy, a little difficult to decipher, but there was lots of talk about working against power politics, working against hegemony. No guesses, no secrets as to who that is hinting at. And it's just worth saying that the leaders here don't have an enormous amount in common, but they all do share at least a suspicion, if not outward distaste for Donald Trump and Americanism. And there is a sense that China positioning itself as a new type of global leader here.
Helen Ann Smith for us there. Now then, it's transfer deadline day. Some very good news for Liverpool fans. Let's go live to Sky Sports' Vinny O'Connor. Vinny, record-breaking day, hey?
It is, yeah. Liverpool agreeing that £125 million flat fee with Newcastle for the signing of Alexander Isak, who is due to undergo a medical here today. He will also take part of that medical offsite as well at a local hospital. But Alexander Isak has agreed a 6-year contract with Liverpool as well once he puts pen to paper. And of course, he is regarded as one of the best strikers in the world at the moment. You look at what he's been able to do at Newcastle as well. The fact that it's 54 Premier League goals in 86 Premier League appearances as well. Just at the age of 25, he turns 26 next month, and we're looking at when he can start making his impact for Liverpool. Remember, of course, we're going into an international break at the moment, but after that international break, Liverpool have Burnley away, then it's Atletico Madrid at home in the Champions League, and then nothing bigger than the Merseyside derby, his first Premier League game at Anfield that Alexander Isak could possibly take part in as well. As I say, the visitors to Anfield on that occasion, Everton, then it's Palace away, Galatasaray away in the Champions League before Chelsea away at the start of October. But the big news, of course, the fact that Liverpool spending is continuing during this transfer window. It will be a British record fee of £125 million, eclipsing the £150 million that Chelsea paid Brighton for Moises Caicedo back in 2023.
And Vinny, we know that the deadline obviously closes at 7 o'clock tonight, a little earlier than what we're used to. Any other surprises we can expect?
Not necessarily surprises, but we're waiting to see what developments there could be over Liverpool's potential signing of Mark Gay from Crystal Palace. We saw Mark Gay actually in action last night and what a goal he scored against Aston Villa. But Liverpool looking to bring him in. They're looking to strengthen their centre-half department for around £35 million. Crystal Palace are holding out for that little bit more. They would like around about £35 million plus £5 million in add-ons with a possible sell-on clause as well. Remember, Mark Gay is out of contract next summer, so there's the possibility he could leave Crystal Palace if he sees out this season on a free transfer. As I mentioned, Liverpool would like to get a deal done now, and there was the possibility as well of Joe Gomez going the other way. Now, at the moment, I'm told that Joe Gomez is staying here with Liverpool, very much part of the first-team setup, so we'll wait to see if there's any potential wriggle room and any potential developments as regards Mark Gay possibly coming here. And, of course, there's Harvey Elliott as well. He had been allowed to talk to RB Leipzig earlier in this transfer window. As yet, Liverpool have not received any indication that Leipzig are going to make an offer worth considering at this juncture. So again, it looks like Harvey Elliott could remain as part of the first-team setup, albeit Liverpool said he would remain if they didn't get in further attacking options. But clearly, they are managing to add to their attacking options with that potential deal for Alexander Isak going through later today.
All right, nice one, Vinny. Thank you so much. We should stick with Liverpool, Gareth. It pains me, but they beat Arsenal yesterday 1-0. Liverpool fans will know that there was a winning moment 30 yards out. Zaborszlai scoring that winning goal. Very shaky from Arsenal, really, but it's giving me David Beckham, 1996 halfway line vibes, where he did pretty much the same thing. But it does feel like the magic of Liverpool continues just 3 games in to the Premier League season. So hats off to them so far. Let's see how it runs out.
I'm just looking at all of the back pages that have that celebration picture on them. Cop shows who's boss, as it says on the back of the Mirror. Yes, blame what's come. I was thinking the same. I was kind of nodding in approval, thinking that Beckham will have been kind of going, yeah, that wasn't a bad one.
It was all right.
He probably would have argued he could have done a better take, a bit more of a curve on it. But anyway, very good indeed. Pretty nice day yesterday across the board in the UK. What's the weather going to be like later today? Well, it seems to know we've entered the meteorological autumn. There's your answer. Unsettled conditions coming this week. Showery and blustery out there now. Central and eastern England largely fine. Showers more widespread through the morning. Some heavy and prolonged, but there'll be some sunny spells too. Hail and thunder will be a risk. It'll be on the cool side generally, but less windy than the weekend. The afternoon will bring more of the same with a mix of sunshine and showers for most. The wind will mostly ease overnight and the showers will become well scattered. Southwestern Britain, wet and windy later. We're continuing to watch the situation in Afghanistan, a magnitude 6 quake that occurred there. 622 people known to have lost their lives, and this is the start of the rescue and recovery effort.
Yeah, do head over to the Sky News website and our latest live updates from there. And of course, we're seeing that at least 622 people have been killed. That number is likely to increase.
Yes, very difficult terrain to operate in, very cut-off communities as well, and very mountainous regions, and poor weather, all hampering recovery efforts, plus to the isolation of the Afghani authorities in the form of the Taliban. We'll bring you all the details and the full story first after this short break.
Hear that whistle and that crunch. We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury.
I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
Our
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos, analysis, up at 6%. Podcasts, watching us live. Joins us live all in one place, and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
It's 8:30 on a Monday morning. You're watching Breakfast on Sky News. Time to bring you an update on the breaking news this morning.
Yeah, Afghanistan's Taliban-run Interior Ministry have said at least 622 people have been killed in an earthquake in the east of the country.
At least 1,300 others have also been injured. This is where it was epicentered, in the east of the country, near the city of Jalalabad, approximately 74 miles from Afghanistan's capital, Kabul.
Let's bring in Sadia Chowdhury. She's been looking at this story for us all morning. What do we know so far, Sadia? Of course, that number that we're seeing right now on screen, 622 people, that will change throughout the morning.
Yeah, of course, that is the current and confirmed death toll of 622, but as you say, likely to go up because this is currently an ongoing rescue and search and rescue operation with people involved. We've seen helicopters involved with residents, soldiers, medics, all getting involved to try and look for any survivors in those in that rubble. The earthquake struck around midnight, so it is a time when a lot of people would have already gone to bed, and there were a number of aftershocks as well. And there are unconfirmed reports that in one village alone, a total of 30 people were killed. That gives you some indication of the level of devastation that we are going to expect to see over the next few hours. The pictures that we're seeing show homes reduced to rubble. There have been pictures coming in of people on stretchers waiting to be taken out for treatment, others who are out there, even in the middle of the night, looking for their loved ones. It is, of course, daytime now, so there will be better visibility, but there are very slow-moving conditions when it comes to this particular region. So, as you say, the quake's epicenter was near Jalalabad, which is Afghanistan's 5th largest city in Nangarhar province. That's about 74 miles from Kabul, but the shocks could be felt in Kabul, but also in neighboring Pakistan's capital, Islamabad, which is nearly 200 miles away. And there are rescuers also scrambling to find survivors in the area bordering Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region, where homes are actually made out of mud and stone. So just an indication of the kind of destruction that we've seen as a result of this earthquake. We know military teams are across both regions trying to find rescuers. It is a mountainous region which is very difficult to access with many remote areas. And it's also currently experiencing thunderstorms. And over the weekend, there was flash flooding in the area, which took out communication lines, that is hampering the rescue efforts, but also caused lots of damage to infrastructure and the roads leading in and out of those areas. So you can just imagine the kind of how slow this rescue operation will end up being. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees has outlined how difficult the place is already before the earthquake even struck. And we can compare it to the earthquake in 2023, which was a 6.3 magnitude earthquake. At that time, the World Health Organization said that there was an estimated 1,482 death toll, 2,100 injured, and 114,000 people were left in need of aid, and hospitals were overwhelmed as the winter months approached. This one last night around midnight, 6 magnitude earthquake with tremors felt nearly 200 miles away, a number of aftershocks, hundreds feared dead, 622 confirmed, over 1,000 injured, homes destroyed, and now a very slow-moving and difficult rescue and search operation.
We'll be hearing, Sadia, thank you so much. We'll be hearing from the Red Cross in Kabul later in the programme here on Breakfast on Sky News. And we're going to keep you continually updated on the situation with regards to the developments in Afghanistan so that we can bring you up to date on all the developments there. Like we say, 622 people confirmed to have died, 1,300 people thought to have been injured in that situation. We're going to hear from the Red Cross in Kabul, and there it's incredibly difficult country to try and operate and bring recovery to.
Yes, the weather has been a huge issue in the last few days, coming off the back of the monsoon season, of course, in the region too. There'll be a huge effort currently. This is an active search and rescue operation. We're hearing entire villages being wiped out, and we will, as we said, as Gareth said, keep you up to date on this story. Do head to the Sky News website and app with the very latest lines.
And we're going to continue to follow this. There's lots being brought in on the Sky News website and app. Let's just bring you some of this reporting that our colleagues on the digital desk are pulling together. The WHO and UN say teams delivering life-saving support after the devastating quake. They're supporting the treatment of wounded people in Afghanistan. The UN said its teams are delivering emergency assistance. Plenty more to come as well. Well, MPs return to Westminster today. Let's bring you more on that after the summer break. And the government will continue to feel pressure on migration with more asylum seeker protests over the course of the weekend. Joined now by Sky's Deputy Political Editor Sam Coates and Politico's Executive Editor Anne McElvoy. Good to have you both with us. Let's just talk about the headline of your podcast this morning, talking about kind of the rejig that might be at the heart of the government today.
That's right. Look, the government has put migration on the agenda with a Yvette Cooper statement later today. There's also an announcement about extending the amount of free childcare that parents get for kids that are more than 9 months. But really what everybody in Westminster is looking to is the return of number 10 and whether or not Keir Starmer shakes up his operation. Because you'll know, Gareth, we went into the summer with Labour in a pretty bleak mood. The Prime Minister appeared to lose control of his party over that welfare bill, those welfare reforms that had to be junked at the last moment, causing all sorts of problems for the public finances. And there was lots of speculation that Keir Starmer really hadn't handled the situation terribly well and now needs to get a grip. So what does that grip look like? Well, we know a couple of things for certain. The first is that he's going to shake up number 10 a bit. There are new people coming in. He's got a new economic advisor. I think there might be more surprising announcements on that front today, potentially bringing in figures, I don't know, like Tim Allen, an old Blairite big hitter, could return to Downing Street. But we also know that this reset could potentially be strung over a longer period, because the line from number 10 is there absolutely won't be a wider reshuffle. Although we never expected there to be a cabinet level reshuffle, there had been quite a lot of people expecting there to be a sort of shake-up of the more junior ranked ministers of state, junior ministers, the engine room of the government being overhauled. That was anticipated by many for today, to give the government a sort of sense of renewed purpose and fresh focus. That isn't happening. The Prime Minister's only just got back from his Croatian holiday. But that means if it's not this week, maybe that comes next week, but hangs the whole reset vibe over the government for a little bit longer than anybody might want.
On your comments you made in the Eye as well today, talking about kind of the bit of the sideshow that the government needs to kind of get a grip of, right, so that it doesn't cause a distraction from the main issues at hand.
Yes, I mean, I was writing as it happened on Angela Rayner and all the difficulties that now seem to be surrounding her purchase of a property, another property, and the tax and main residence kind of questions about that. But in some ways, it's so symbolic, isn't it, of the way that the government sometimes feels like it's just thrown off course just when we're all coming back. It's shiny shoes day, as we've been calling it on the podcast. Everyone's back to school at Westminster as they're preparing to, or going back to real school for anyone on watching. So I think there's that sense that you want to get a clean start. Now, as Sam was reflecting, we know that there's some reset coming. Some of it is already underway in number 10. But as far as the public's concerned, these are people that they don't know, and some people leave, they'll be replaced by other people that the public are not aware of. So the only reason really for doing it is you've got to have a very clear idea of what you're trying to achieve. What are the deficits in the way that the Starmer machine is working that you intend to address? And some people say, well, the weakness is the man himself. That is quite widely heard at Westminster. But the fact is, he is there. He is the leader of the Labour Party, who was also clear that he was not the full package of a very polished communicator and driver of delivery ideas. So you've got what you've got as a Prime Minister. How would you then make the best of that and the best of his instincts and the details-oriented side of Keir Starmer, which we know that he is rather good at? So that seems to be the question that is facing the government. How can it stop itself being pushed off track by unforced errors, perhaps the timing. I don't want to speak for Angela Rayner's housing purchases, but it's not ideal to be talking about that right now. If you are going to do a reshuffle, wouldn't it be better to get on with it? There might also be an argument that coming up to party conference, and people have already booked their travel and think they've got a role at party conference. It causes more drama if you do a reshuffle. But the longer you leave it, the longer these things mount up. So I think we will be looking at some form of surgical strikes there in terms of getting people into jobs that Keir Starmer thinks will really help them. I think he knows to an extent that he needs more support, but he also needs to radically simplify a too big machine.
The Prime Minister, in his op-ed this morning, our drive to deliver national renewal will make every person feel better off and more secure, is his final words. Sam, though, there's a poll in the papers today saying 77% of Brits think that the country's broken to some degree. How swiftly, if at all, can politicians turn the needle in the opposite direction? Because there are lots of resets and lots of surgical strikes required, as Anne's saying there, but they're not having the impact that the government would like.
Gareth, you've got to get the people right, and then you've got to get the structures right, and then you've got to get the policy right, and then you've got to start delivering it. And it feels like we're at the bottom of that hill because a reset implies changing people and maybe slightly changing direction. But to what direction, and how far away from what we felt was the vision presented to us in the general election last year? We just don't know. I think across Whitehall, the idea of there being a mission-led government is in some quarters a bit discredited. People sort of shrug their shoulders and laugh. There is no mission on immigration, which is pretty much one of the government's top domestic priorities. There is a 20 to 40 billion pound black hole in Rachel Reeves' finances. There's a mission to solve that, but that wasn't one of the five that Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer talked about before. So it's just very, very tricky. I think, Keir Starmer would say he's had to deal with a lot of the things he didn't expect when he came into government. A lot of other people would say he simply wasn't prepared. His team simply wasn't prepared and hadn't done the thinking and got to grips with anything like as much as they should do. Take one example. For instance, I was very struck over the weekend that one of the Cabinet's leading fiscal hawks, the Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood, was basically making the case in the Sunday Times that this government's got to do welfare reform. It was 7 weeks ago that the government found that they didn't have a mandate to do that from their backbenchers, their massive landslide majority. But here we've got a Cabinet Minister publicly calling on the Prime Minister to go back, and as far as I can tell, Downing Street agrees. So what on earth is this government's plan on welfare? And isn't that critical to trying to balance the books? Nobody knows. We just don't know enough of the direction, enough of the lodestar of where things need to go. And I think without a direction from the Prime Minister, all of these things that we're talking about, people, structures, they fall by the wayside and end up not really working because, you need to be able to deliver something in order to work out how to deliver it in the first place.
And as all the parliamentarians come back to Westminster today, I can't help but get the sense that while Sam acknowledges that migration is the government's top domestic policy, we've heard relatively little from the Home Secretary over the course of the summer, but we have heard huge amounts from the opposition parties, Reform in particular, really driving that narrative. The Conservatives, Chris Philp, doing their best to also kind of push that agenda too. What should we expect to see from those two parties over the course of the next week or so?
Well, we will see a response from Yvette Cooper when she gets to be first on her hind legs up in Parliament, talking about plans to constrain the amounts of so-called family reunion policy when people come in as asylum seekers. What are the regulations about how many people can then join them and the terms of that? So I would expect that would lead to a tightening on that score, exactly to try to do as you suggest, is to try to take the edge off those attacks, which have been coming thick and fast. Of course, events on the ground around the Bell Hotel in Epping, etc., have brought to life an argument driven very much by Reform, yes, adopted by the Conservatives, yes, but a lot of real anger and discomfort out there about the government's plans for dealing with asylum and irregular migration. So I think that's an absolute, Sam was quite rightly saying, in the days when these missions were drawn up by Keir Starmer, 5 things I want to do, he missed out asylum and immigration. That was clearly a bad miss. It happened in opposition. And now it's so clearly at the forefront of what the government needs to do. If it can't do that and deal with the economy in some way, but I would, even for right now, I'd put asylum and immigration absolutely at the front of the queue. People won't give it a hearing on other things. And once you sort of go down into what people are really thinking, well, there may be aspects of what Labour is doing that they understand, but if they're confused or just furious and not really listening to what the government is saying on asylum and immigration, then that needs to change. So I think we're going to need to see things expedited, and I think that will be where Yvette Cooper will be pointing her fire and fury today.
The podcast has been up for 58 minutes. What's behind Starmer's reset? Thank you both so much, and all the best for the rest of the day as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Let's return to breaking news on Afghanistan. We're joined now by Halima Begum, Chief Executive of Oxfam, joining us from Oxford. We're going to talk about a couple of other topics with you in a few moments' time. Just interested for your thoughts with regards to Afghanistan, because obviously since the return of the Taliban to power in 2021, the role of humanitarian agencies has diminished somewhat, and that will be highlighted by the challenges that this earthquake's posed in the last few hours.
So, look, it's devastating to have woken up to the news this morning across all of our news channels, and our thoughts and solidarity are with the people of Afghanistan. But as you rightly said, providing support, emergency relief in Afghanistan, either over the long term or even during this emergency, is a really difficult process because women's rights are not upheld very well in this country. We've had to pull out some years ago for reasons to do with operational difficulty. So this presents a very difficult and complex challenge for us. So our thoughts are with our partner agencies like the British Red Cross, who are operating there as we speak, trying to figure out how best we can get support to what you can see are very difficult mountainous regions. I've obviously worked in places like Nepal before, or visited the earthquake response in Morocco a few years ago, and getting aid across in that context is really difficult.
And in situations such as this, would Oxfam support at a back-end level the roles that are being provided by people like the Red Cross, for example? Is there kind of intra-humanitarian organisation support, even if you're not operating in that country itself?
So in times of crisis like this, often we work in partnership with the sector. So all of the INGOs and charities will be getting together, figuring out who is present there. And of course, there's an ongoing conversation and monitoring with the Disasters Emergency Committee to just see where the death toll goes and what that response level should be.
We're going to continue to focus on that situation through the course of the day and the morning here on Sky. I also just want to talk to you about an issue that will be much closer to home for many of our viewers, and an issue that Oxfam is keen to talk about: fast fashion. And there is a remarkable statistic that you have produced today regarding the amount of unworn clothes. Talk to us about that, if you will.
Thank you. And just moving on sensitively from obviously a very desperate topic like the earthquake. So I just want to acknowledge how difficult that conversation is for many of our audiences. But moving on to the issue of fast fashion, it takes, as you say, the equivalent of 20,000 standard bottles of water to manufacture an average T-shirt and a pair of jeans. And the reason why that matters so much for us is the issues around waste that this throws up. And this amount of water can actually save countless lives in places like Sudan and in Afghanistan as we speak today. So we are very keen on raising awareness around the kind of excess of fashion and how we can best turn that into an opportunity for slowing down fashion and the way in which we protect our planet.
Where does the balance of responsibility lie here? Is it with consumers or is it with the producers of fast fashion? Because at the end of the day, when people are feeling a budgetary pinch, they'll go for often the cheapest option. It's kind of natural human inclination. So is this entirely on all of us to think about how we go about dressing ourselves and what we buy? Or is this also about the big firms taking a bit more responsibility for what they offer in the first place?
It's both, isn't it? Because actually the manufacturers could be producing less clothes or produce clothes that can actually be more sustainable. And we could also think about consuming less or thinking about hidden gems in our own wardrobes. think about this statistic, about $2 trillion, it's a $2 trillion industry, fast fashion, right? So in this industry, 40% of clothes never make it to the shelves. And in fact, even looking at the unused clothes that we have sitting in our wardrobes, it's about 1.5 billion unused items that sit in our collective wardrobe. So it's enough to really, as I said before, to save countless lives in places like Sudan and Afghanistan, but also to close the entire population of Manchester for 450 years. So there's something that's not in balance in the way in which the fashion industry operates and how we consume. So that's why Secondhand September, which is a really important campaign for us, and that's what I'm here to talk about, is really about reusing clothes, reducing waste, saving water, helping to cut carbon, thinking about environment, and it's fashion with a purpose.
CEO of Oxfam, Halima Begum, really appreciate your time and for joining us this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're watching Breakfast on Sky News. Plenty more to come after this short break.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away.
So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Bangkok.
These slums, once gripped by fear and death.
There is far less bloodshed now, but it hasn't gone away.
Who's asking you to kill?
The police will give me the orders, and after I kill the target, I throw the gun away.
We try our best to uncover and unpick a fast-changing and deeply complex region.
These large waterways provided an excellent source of body disposal.
This is the Buriganga River, where victims who'd allegedly been shot dead were dumped.
Sheikh Hasina, how confident are you that she will stand trial?
She will stand trial, there's no doubt about that.
We're going to take you to the very heart of a criminal network, going undercover inside Southeast Asia's scam centres for the very first time.
We won't have any problems with police, it's okay. Just seen Imran Khan leave, and as we understand it, he's just been shot in the leg.
They have decided that the only way they'll allow elections is if I'm inside jail or killed.
Sky News get the full story first.
Chinese vessels start encircling the boat we're on, blocking its path.
The Chinese are now deploying water cannons, firing it directly towards our boat. We've discovered doctors across Delhi dishing out pills like this, claiming they will provide a lifelong cure for homosexuality.
Rohingya people fleeing an escalating civil war.
The situation here in Cox's is desperate. An already insecure place does feel a lot more precarious.
I'm David Blevins, and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent. I've spent 30 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace. The end of the political stalemate, the start of a new chapter for Northern Ireland. Catholics and Protestants now facing the same threat.
If we both contract COVID-19, religion's nothing.
Sky News, the full story first.
It is just coming up to 9 o'clock and you're watching Breakfast on Sky News. Let's bring you more now on a 34-year-old British woman who's been stabbed to death in Cambodia.
Yeah, police have identified the victim as Jessica Cariad Hopkins. Our Asia correspondent Cordelia Lynch has the latest for you.
Very sad news coming out of Cambodia's capital, Phnom Penh. Local police say that a British woman, 34-year-old Jessica Cariad Hopkins, has died after being stabbed multiple times in a park there in a southern district of the city. They've also said that 17 hours later, they arrested a 33-year-old Congolese woman they identified as Kidikila Naganda Glody. Now, the victim, Jessica, came from Harpenden in Hertfordshire, but she had spent time, as we understand it, renting an apartment in the capital and sometime in Siem Reap as well. The Foreign Office has released a statement saying, "We are supporting the family of a British woman who has died in Cambodia and are in contact with the local authorities." Now, the arrest appeared to be caught on camera, and that's been circulated on social media. The 33-year-old handcuffs outside a hair salon in the capital, about 1.5 miles away from the crime scene. We await, though, further details on this case.
Cordelia Lynch there with the very latest.
Yes, just looking out the window, kind of sunny start here in London. What's it like with you?
Well, let's take a look. Well, the weather seems to have now entered the meteorological autumn with unsettled conditions this week.
Showery and blustery out there now. Central and eastern England, though, largely fine.
And showers will become more widespread through the morning, some heavy and prolonged, but there'll be sunny spells too. Hail and thunder will be at risk, and it'll be on the cool side generally, but less windy than the weekend.
And just looking ahead to the afternoon, more of the same. Mix of sunshine and showers for most of us. Wind mostly easing overnight. We're just also keeping a close eye on the situation in Afghanistan. Midnight there, local time, according to the United States Geological Survey, a magnitude 6 earthquake. 622 people killed.
Yeah, of course, that number will change throughout the day. We're also hearing that 1,500 people at least have been injured after the tremor that hit near the Pakistani border. Several villages also, Gareth, completely destroyed. That's the latest from the Public Health Ministry there.
Yes, some initial reports of some of the emergency response include the authorities, the Taliban authorities, helicoptering 30 doctors to some villages in Kuna province. 800 kilograms of medicines also being taken as well. But this is incredibly mountainous terrain, incredibly hard to access. And as we were hearing from the CEO of Oxfam a little earlier, the number of humanitarian organisations operating there following the resurgence of the Afghanistan Taliban in 2021, much diminished. So the challenges of supporting people very high indeed.
Yeah, we'll have more on that throughout the morning. Heading for a short break. Join us on our return.
Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming.
I'm Deborah Hames, Sky Security and Defence Editor. Should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real.
Very good morning to you. It is 9 o'clock. We start with breaking news this morning. Hundreds of people have been killed in an earthquake in Afghanistan.
Also ahead, trying to get a grip of the asylum crisis, the Home Secretary will make a statement to MPs today announcing tighter rules on appeals.
And it's transfer deadline day. We'll have the very latest for you on Alexander Isak's record-breaking transfer from Newcastle to Liverpool.
The other big news is it's the start of autumn. It's Monday, the 1st of September. The Afghan government says at least 622 people have been killed, many more injured in an earthquake. Rescue operations currently underway. We'll bring you a special report on the divisions over asylum that are pulling communities across the UK apart.
Can you not see me talking?
Plus, an image of a new world order. China, India, Russia, promising to be partners, not rivals, all speak to the United States' former ambassador to the UN, John Bolton. Plus, in sports news, Liverpool set to sign Alexander Isak from Newcastle for a British record fee. Very good morning to you. We start with breaking news. Afghanistan's Interior Ministry have said that at least 622 people have been killed in an earthquake in the east of the country. At least 1,300 others have also been injured. Well, the quake's epicenter was in the east of Afghanistan, near the city of Jalalabad, which is approximately 74 miles away from the capital, Kabul. Sadia Chowdhury is following the developments. Sadia.
Yeah, so the 622 death toll comes from the Afghanistan Interior Ministry. It is a confirmed death toll, but it is just the current one. This is an ongoing search and rescue operation, so we expect that to go up because this earthquake struck just before midnight at a time when many people would have already gone to bed, especially children. And so the suspicion is that many people still perhaps trapped under rubble. And that is why we see these pictures of people. And by no means does this look at all coordinated. They are using their hands. They are not wearing any safety equipment, all trying to help anybody that needs it. There are confirmed reports this morning saying that 30 people alone were killed in one single village. That gives you an indication of the sort of death toll we may end up seeing. And the pictures that we're getting showing helicopters being used to escort people from rubble-hit areas to places where they can be perhaps safer. Residents, soldiers, medics all getting involved. Homes utterly destroyed, people out there looking for their loved ones. And as I say, not any sense of a coordinated effort on the ground yet. And that is because this earthquake hit a very remote part of Afghanistan, which is Jalalabad, the fifth largest city in the country in Nangarhar province, about 74 miles east of Kabul, as you said. And also the shock could be felt in buildings as far away as Kabul, but also in Pakistan's capital city in Islamabad, which is nearly 200 miles away to the east. And rescuers in Pakistan, on the bordering area of Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region, also scrambling to try and find people because homes there are particularly vulnerable, made of mud and stone. Afghanistan, of course, one of the world's poorest countries and highly vulnerable to natural disasters. There are military teams across both of those earthquake-hit regions trying to find people. It is a mountainous region with very remote access, very difficult to reach areas. And it has also, in the last few days, been battered by a heavy rainfall. And so flooding and flash floods there have made the effort to find people, survivors, even slower and difficult.
And you alluded to this, Sadia. It's remote villages which will make the rescue operation even harder. It will be down to villagers picking up rubble to try to get people that are trapped underneath.
Absolutely. Those are the pictures we're seeing, as people just getting involved, trying to do what they can, because any sense of a coordinated effort seems far off because of those flash floodings over the weekend, which have caused landslides. So roads have been blocked, communication lines are down. We've also heard from the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, who talked about this. Have a listen to what he said.
That's a country that is already
suffering from a multiplicity of crises. There's a big drought. Iran has sent back almost 2 million people. Pakistan threatens to do the same with Afghans living there. And of course, it's extremely difficult to mobilize resources because of the Taliban. So it's a perfect storm. And this earthquake, likely to have been quite devastating, is going to just add to the misery.
So we can expect this operation to be very slow-moving and that death toll to increase, because we know with situations like this, time is of the essence. And we can see that on-the-ground pictures are showing us there's no sense of coordination. People using their hands, there's no tools, there's no emergency equipment, no ropes, things that you might imagine in the aftermath of such an earthquake. And there is a call for humanitarian organisations to get involved, especially in those areas which can only be accessed by air. Just to give some sort of comparison, 2 years ago in 2023, there was a 6.3 magnitude earthquake. At the time, the World Health Organization estimated that there were 1,482 deaths and 114,000 people were left needing aid. Hospitals were completely overwhelmed and thousands of people were made homeless as the winter approached. This one last night, a magnitude 6 earthquake. Tremors felt nearly 200 miles away, a number of aftershocks. The latest Interior Ministry death toll is 622, and now a very slow-moving rescue operation going on.
Sadia, thank you so much. There'll be plenty more on that story on the Sky News website and at the live blog running there the entire time. Some of the day's other stories for you now. We'll focus firstly on the government setting out plans later to improve border security and reform the asylum appeal system. That's coming later today.
Yeah, it is, Gareth. We'll have more on that with Mari in just a moment. But first, let's show you Shaman Freeman-Powell's special report from Nuneaton, a town that's become one of the flashpoints of the migration debate.
Here in Nuneaton, tensions around immigration are running high.
That's the issue we have in our country.
Anti-immigration protesters have taken to the streets several times and even clashed with police. The protest started after 2 men were accused of raping a 12-year-old girl. The men deny the charges and are due to face trial. The leader of the reform-led council, George Finch, claimed that they were asylum seekers, although their immigration status hasn't been confirmed.
I don't think I'd want to live next door to, not being funny, not being racist at all, an asylum seeker, knowing what's been going on the news.
20-year-olds getting married or partners, they're struggling to get on the property ladder. And these asylum seekers, 5-star hotels, a lot of you said these HMO places, I think it's unfair.
I've seen the amount of immigration into the local area recently. As long as there's no trouble, I don't think that there's an issue, really.
Do you think race plays a part in any of this at all?
I'm not sure. Maybe, because obviously quite a lot of people are racist and can be racist.
No, I don't think it's got anything to do with race. I mean, we've got Chinese people here, we've got Indians, we've got Africans.
Were you born in England?
I was born in England, yeah.
Yeah, so you're English, and England is for the English.
But my grandparents came from Jamaica.
Well, I got nothing against Jamaica.
But they were immigrants.
I've probably got one of the best cricket teams I've ever seen.
It was during this interview with Zaheen, a local businessman, that things took a turn. And how old are you?
32.
32.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah, no, we should...
That's the issue we have in our country. You got to use raping our kids. This is our country. How about becoming your country if you and your kids?
Let's walk. To avoid an escalation of the confrontation, I attempted to move Zaheen away. Are you okay?
Yeah, because I'm used to this conflict.
No, but that's
my...
No one should be used to that. A woman who worked at the local bookshop had heard the commotion and came to speak to us. Have you ever seen anything like that?
No. Well, there have been protests
And of course, Warwickshire County Council's gone to reform. So I think it's given certain people a licence to be aggressive and to be racist.
Wow, to hear that actually is saddening, and I think what I've just heard is not the case at all. Reform, actually, Nigel Farage as the leader, has done the most out of any political party, out of any person, to take down the far right, to protect young girls. They think that you going out protesting, that's racist. And that's the world going mad.
As more anti-immigration protests pop up across Britain, councils like Epping have taken legal steps to block asylum seekers being housed in hotels. But if asylum seekers aren't housed in hotels, they may be housed next door, like here in Nuneaton. We've just been invited into a house where asylum seekers live. This used to be a 3-bed house on a terrace road. It's now a house that sleeps 8 people. I spoke to one of the residents here, Javed. We're not using his real name as he asked to stay anonymous. He's from Iran and could only speak Farsi. We used a translation app to speak to him and then had a translator review what he told us. Did you come here on a small boat? And if so, what was that journey like?
I didn't know how to swim, and I was very scared, but they forced me to get on the boat. I had to come here illegally. I had to. I had no other choice.
So why are asylum seekers here in Nuneaton living in residential properties, and how did we get to this point? A few years ago, asylum seekers in Nuneaton were few and far between, in single digits. But by June of this year, that number had surged to 247, none of them in hotels. They're living in dispersal accommodation, in the community, side by side with locals. That works out to 19 asylum seekers per 10,000 people, placing Nuneaton 87th in terms of concentration. It's data that paints a picture of pressure, of change, of a town adjusting to a new reality.
If they want to protest, by all means protest, but there has to be a solution, and I think that solution comes through dialogue, not ranting off, swearing at each other.
In a statement, a spokesperson for the Home Office told Sky News, this government inherited an asylum system in chaos. We have taken urgent action to fix the system, more than doubling asylum decisions and cutting the backlog by 41%. And the cost of asylum hotels was reduced by almost £1 billion in 2024 to 25. After the incident in the town centre, Zaheen decided not to press charges.
We have to feel accepted in it, included, be part of it.
Well, Shaman joins us now along with our political correspondent, Mari Aurora. Shaman, that incident that we saw in the town centre there in Nuneaton, I keep opening my Twitter and seeing so many of those incidents being uploaded online and shared, which is a sentiment that it's got the whole country to this melting point of anger.
Absolutely, and that's what's interesting about Nuneaton as a town. It is a market town which has seen an increase in asylum seekers, but we're talking about an increase from, in 2023, asylum seekers being in single digits, and now in 2025, around 247. Now, in a town with a population of 88,000 people, that number seems pretty small, doesn't it? But it's clearly having an impact in places like Nuneaton and across the country as well. And as you've rightly pointed out, those confrontations are being widely shared across social media. And actually, I think my initial thought after that confrontation was just how humiliated Zaheen must have felt in that situation, and how it's quite difficult to defend yourself, isn't it, in a situation like that. I didn't know what to say to de-escalate the situation. But I think what was quite interesting is when I was speaking to people around Nuneaton is that actually lots of the people that I approached that were from various ethnic backgrounds had spoken about an increase in what they perceived as racism and questions about their backgrounds and what they felt about asylum seekers too. And I don't know if it was clear in that piece, but Zaheen, the person that was confronted by this group, he's British, and that's what he had to deal with in that situation.
Well, your background was also brought into question. What was that like?
It's not the first time that I've been asked, and I think that ordinarily, you know, I'm quite proud of my heritage and proud of my background. It's not something I will shy away from, but in the context of this reporting, it was quite confronting, actually. Yeah.
And just thinking about the figures you said there, 240 people in a town of 88,000, if I've done my maths right, Mari, that's 0.3% of the population. And this is the challenge for the government, isn't it? Is there's a kind of a government of technocrats and statisticians and people that like facts and figures.
The lanyard class.
The lanyard class. They're not so good on the emotion, maybe, as other governments have been. And they'll look at this and go, well, look, the issue's not that big, but that's not the perception, is it?
Yeah, this is the problem that I think Labour is having at the moment, is politics is just as much about emotion and vibes, that has been historically said, as facts and figures. And the difficulty is you cannot win the narrative purely on facts and figures. You have to fight on both of those fronts, on the emotive front. And the difficulty is Labour have so far been perhaps slightly unsuccessful when it comes to that side of things. We've got the PM now back at work. We've got the Home Secretary giving her statement today in the House, talking about tightening up border security, talking about, you know, the different National Crime Agency raids that they've had and the number of boats that are falling, you know, since Labour have come to power, despite the fact that the boats are having more people on them. So the number of boats might be going down, but the number of people aren't going down necessarily at the same pace. And this is the difficulty, is that they are trying to make sure that they persuade the public that they are really got a grip on this and essentially bear with us, give us a moment and we will crack down on this. The difficulty is that if people don't feel that way, whether it's based in fact or whether it's based in hyperbole, Labour needs to, I think, spend a bit more time finding a way to tap into that emotional connection to the voters and actually find an emotional way of connecting with them in order to try and persuade them that they are doing a better job. Because if you look at the polling from what voters are saying, they're not very impressed with not just immigration, but in general. You were talking about a poll that's out today saying how many people feel like the country is broken, 77%. And so they have quite a lot of a clean-up operation to do, having been in power over a year now, to persuade people that things are getting better.
And then you talk about vibes. You look at, I'm just looking at Elon Musk's Twitter feed, which is hugely influential. And like the first half a dozen posts are all, he's reposting Darren Grimes, he's reposting about migration, he's reposting about how the UK got so messed up. And this a lot of the people in towns like the ones you went to, Shaman, will be really hooked in on this rather than what the government's saying.
Absolutely, and actually many of the people that I spoke to on the streets of Nuneaton were referencing news reports, not necessarily from Nuneaton, but from across the country. And there are so many people that do have genuine concerns, whether that's about the state of Nuneaton, it's about social housing. So many people I spoke to spoke about knowing people that were trying to get on the housing ladder but struggling. And as far as they see it, you have asylum seekers, 247, who they believe are benefiting from a system that they're not able to. But then on the flip side, speaking to someone that's currently going through the asylum process, he told me he's scared to leave the house because he understands how people feel about people like him. And I think it is really about having a conversation which not only humanises asylum seekers, but also really takes into account how people feel.
Really appreciate you both. We could talk about that all morning, but still to come.
Still to come on The Breakfast Show. We're going for a short break now. On our return, transfer deadline day. We'll have the very latest on that big move for Alexander Isak heading to Liverpool for a record fee of £125 million.
Meanwhile, China hosts Russia and India, among others, at a trade and security conference. We'll discuss that and more with Donald Trump's former National Security Advisor, John Bolton, coming up at 9:30.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury.
I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides, and it's moving this way.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos, analysis, up at 6%. Podcasts, watching us live. Joins us live. All in one place, and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Well, welcome back. Rob Harris is here because it's deadline transfer day. It all closes at 7 o'clock tonight. I want to talk about that because it's a bit earlier than we're used to. But first, it is a fantastic day, isn't it, to be a Scouser?
It is, because it has been the saga of the summer. Liverpool fans waiting to discover, will they land Alexander Isak? And just after midnight, we discovered they had struck a deal with Newcastle. It looks like it could be worth up to £130 million because, in part, some of his old clubs get some cash as well. And they've been pursuing him the whole summer. Isak had to put a statement out on Instagram trying to push his way out of the North East club.
But there has been a lot of conversation, hasn't there, about Isak's his behaviour around not wanting to train with the rest of the club, his disquiet about being part of Newcastle. How is that played out? Because it's not really a good look for Liverpool, it's not a good look for Newcastle.
Yeah, it is a sour end. So at the start of the summer, Liverpool did bid £110 million. That was rejected by Newcastle and their Saudi owners, clearly wanting to sort of protect their own status. They're in the Champions League themselves. They're obviously newly wealthy in the last few years with the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Funds. They want to build their squad, but then you had Isak saying that he'd been let down, he'd had broken promises, he believed he could leave if the right offer came in, and after weeks of potentially not wanting to play or train with him, didn't go on the summer tour, not even part of the team barbecue, he eventually, actually, while the Players' Awards, the National Players' Awards, the Players' Union Awards were on last week, he went and put a statement out himself on Instagram saying, look, I need my way out of here. So that was a couple of weeks ago. Now, finally, just in the final hours, they've got the deal. But so much spending by Liverpool, over £400 million in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking magic for Liverpool at the moment. When you're scanning elsewhere, what's worth talking about? Marcus Gay, is he also heading potentially to Liverpool?
Yeah, could Marcus Gay also be going there to strengthen their defensive options? They've focused so much on the attack with a strike force, obviously, that has already started the season now with 3 wins out of 3, 100% record, having won the title last season. This really is Liverpool building from a position of strength. Obviously, it has been a summer of trauma as well with Diogo Jota's death in the car accident. But in terms of the squad that Arne Slot is building, he already inherited a strong one from Jurgen Klopp. And here they are really showing that they are pushing on and trying to go for a second consecutive title. And, of course, with Isak, he scored 54 goals in 86 Premier League appearances, so he's a guaranteed goal machine.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the magic touch, hasn't he, Arne Slot? Coming in, winning big for Liverpool last season. Is this a sign of things to come? Because when you look at, say, Manchester City and Pep Guardiola, and, they've won 2 out of 3, it's not looking great, is it?
No, and that was just Szoboszlai we saw scoring there yesterday for Liverpool, beating Arsenal 1-0. Arsenal themselves believing they should be pushing on for the title now, having finished second so many seasons running. But across at Manchester City, after last season's struggles...
They lost their magic, do you think, then, City?
Yeah, they've now lost 2 of their first 3 games. Here they are against Brighton yesterday, losing, and they'd already lost to Tottenham last weekend as well. So what is going on for Pep Guardiola? We'd spent the last week focusing on Manchester United's struggles, but now they are a point ahead of City. And, we are seeing perhaps some changes there. Donnarumma, the goalkeeper, might be coming in as well. Is Edison on the way out of Manchester City? And across on the red half of Manchester United have to potentially offload some players. Jadon Sancho has fallen out of favour. Kobe Mainoo isn't getting the chances there that he'd be expected to have under Ruben Amorim. So what business do they do? Will they be signing a goalkeeper? Emi Martinez didn't play for Aston Villa yesterday. No word from Unai Emery why he didn't play in the defeat to Nottingham Forest. So he could be someone on the move. But it has been a record-breaking transfer window in the Premier League. Over £2.7 billion, creeping up to £3 billion of spending as we head towards the deadline at 7 p.m.
Is this just the most exciting day for you, Rob?
I think it's a day when there's so much drama. It's the footballing equivalent of a cabinet reshuffle. There's lots of ins and outs, who's going to get the move, and who will be left disappointed.
And just very quickly, why is it all wrapping up at 7, not 11 o'clock, as we're used to?
Well, in Scotland, it is later on, so it's a way of getting business done earlier. It might normally be on the 31st, but there were matches yesterday, so it's today. But there are some who say the transfer window should close before the season starts. The problem is, unless you get all the clubs and leagues around Europe in particular aligned, it would give other leagues a competitive advantage if they had a longer window open. But other countries still have the transfer window open, like in Turkey, for another week, so deals could still be done.
All right, Rob, thank you. Really appreciate that. Love the enthusiasm. We're heading for a short break now, but still to come on The Breakfast Show, Gareth will be joined by Donald Trump's former National Security Advisor, John Bolton. That's after the break.
Some breaking news to bring you now here on Sky News Breakfast. Mari, a bit of a reshuffle in Parliament.
Yes, reshuffle is underway. So what we've got so far is Darren Jones, who is a Treasury Minister. He is now moving to be the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister in the Cabinet Office. And what's interesting about that is it's a new role. So Downing Street's given us a bit of a readout here. And they said it's a role, it's a new appointment which will work collaboratively, across UK government to drive forward progress in key policy areas, reporting directly to the Prime Minister. Now, it's based within 10 Downing Street itself, this role, and is directly overseeing work across government to make sure that the government can essentially deliver on that plan for change. He will also be attending Cabinet as well. And also what's interesting is, let's just remember from last week, the Prime Minister essentially moved one of his senior aides, remember that? Nin Pandit, she was moved, she's a civil servant, so it's a different role here, but she was moved, and Downing Street told us that the PM had asked her to oversee and head up oversight of how priorities are delivered from Number 10. Now, that sounds very similar to this new Darren Jones role. So clearly what Number 10 and Downing Street are wanting to show us and demonstrate is that they are finally going to be getting a grip back on the delivery of the country's priorities, and the Prime Minister very much focusing on delivering those, and maybe acknowledging that actually the delivery has not necessarily been at the level he would like it to have been. So this is what we're hearing so far.
And we're just hearing as well that the UK government has named the former Bank of England Deputy Governor Manoush Shafik as the PM's Chief Economic Advisor. We'll bring you more on all those developments here on Sky News Breakfast. Plenty more on the Politics Hub blog, on the Sky News website and app.
Yeah, we'll just bring viewers up to date on that earthquake in the east of Afghanistan, because the Taliban-run Afghan government says at least 800 people have been killed and nearly 3,000 others injured in an earthquake which struck the earth east of the country. The quake also just hit just before midnight, that was local time, and it's completely destroyed several villages, with emergency services deployed to remote areas. International teams are also delivering emergency assistance and supporting the treatment, of course, of wounded people. There'll be many of those. Crews are distributing aid in the form of blood, water and emergency supplies. Now, the UN High Commissioner spoke to us earlier on in the show.
That's a country that is already suffering from a multiplicity of crises. There's a big drought. Iran has sent back almost 2 million people. Pakistan threatens to do the same with Afghans living there. And of course, it's extremely difficult to mobilize resources because of the Taliban. So it's a perfect storm, and this earthquake, likely to have been quite devastating, is going to just add to the misery.
Plenty more on that story as it develops. Now then, the Russian President Vladimir Putin has said a sustainable peace deal with Ukraine hinges on addressing the issue of NATO's eastward expansion. Speaking at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting in Tianjin, he said the West had tried to bring Ukraine into its orbit and then sought to entice Russia's smaller neighbour into the US-led NATO military alliance. His comments followed talk with China's Xi Jinping and India's Narendra Modi at that summit. Within the last hour, we've seen world leaders attending the gathering once again. As you can see there as well, Turkey's leader, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, walking alongside Russia's Vladimir Putin. Well, watching this with us is former US Ambassador to the United Nations, John Bolton. John, good to have you with us. Appreciate you sharing your time. All eyes on Shanghai at the moment. And in previous instances, this has been referred to as the League of Authoritarian Gentlemen, or a dictators club. But it's somewhat upended now, isn't it, when you see people like Narendra Modi attending too? What do you make of his attendance?
Well, there's a lot of bad news here, very little good news. The West has spent decades, U.S. in particular, trying to wean India away from its Cold War attachment to Soviet Union, Russia, buying sophisticated weapons from them. and cautioning India on the danger posed by China. This is symbolized by what's called the Asian Security Quad: Japan, India, Australia, and the United States. A lot of effort to make India more amenable to cooperation with these countries. Donald Trump in the past weeks has essentially upended that, and for a variety of reasons now sent India back toward Russia to grow closer to China, and just shredding these decades of efforts to try and change that alignment. I'm not saying this can't be fixed, but it's going to take a lot of work, and I don't see it starting anytime soon.
6 months ago, we would have talked about the bromance between Donald Trump and Narendra Modi of India. And then in Trump's attempt to try and bring some leverage against Putin of Russia in respect to the situation in Ukraine, 50% tariffs on India. And are we saying, therefore, from your perspective, that India has been driven in this direction as much as it's decided to go in this direction?
Well, I think that's right. It's a series of things that Trump has done that have offended the Indians. On the basic tariffs that Trump wants, which I think as a macro level economic phenomena are a disaster for everybody, but the Indians thought they were in close negotiations to solve this, as Britain did with Trump, and Trump just dismissed it and set 25% tariffs. Then carrying through, as you mentioned, on his threat to either tariff Russia or impose secondary tariffs on countries buying Russian oil and gas, Trump whacked India with another 25%, did not tariff Russia, did not tariff China, the largest purchaser of Russian oil and gas. And then to make it worse, when the recent escalation between Pakistan and India over a terrorist attack in Kashmir occurred, it escalated, then came back down. Trump took full credit for it as one of the 6 or 7 wars that he stopped this year to deserve the Nobel Peace Prize, which has made India incandescent.
This organisation brings together a huge swathe of the world. It's kind of a 40% or so of the global population, huge element of the Eurasian landmass, something like 23% of global GDP. And I'm just looking at some of the comments being made by Xi Jinping, and he says that the world should seek integration, not decoupling, have an inclusive economic globalisation, and that there should be a community of common security across the region. This feels like a massive potential reset that the West would really struggle to counter.
Well, this is largely a propaganda show, but it demonstrates...
There's a reality behind it, though.
China's hegemonic ambitions in East and Southeast Asia, Central Asia, the former republics of the Soviet Union, again, all of which the U.S., Japan, Australia, many in Europe have been trying to prevent from happening. But Donald Trump's tariff policies, his unwillingness to consider even beneficial diplomatic moves in a larger strategic context have given Xi Jinping and the Chinese an opportunity. Whether they can exploit it or not remains to be seen.
Where does this leave us with the situation in Ukraine and peace? Because 2 weeks ago, 15th of August, on the Friday, we're focusing on Alaska, Putin and Trump in the presidential car and the Beast driving away from their aircraft. There was all the talk of security guarantees, you know, Steve Witkoff coming and making big declarations following. That feels like a very far cry away now. How does the US and the West respond to what it's seeing and try and bring about that goal of some degree of peace in Ukraine?
Well, I think the whole thing is collapsing. I think the chances for peace in Ukraine are probably worse now than they were before the Alaska summit. Putin has gotten away literally with murder. Whatever he said to Trump in Alaska, he's simply ignoring with increased attacks on civilian targets in Ukraine, no diminution in Russia's military efforts, no concessions whatever. This speech of his at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization you just quoted, that the real fundamental cause of his invasion of Ukraine was NATO, is something that's the basis for him now to try and restructure NATO. That's what he really wants, as well as possession of Ukraine. No change whatever in Russia's position.
Why do you say the situation's worse now than before that summit?
Well, I think, as hard as it is to predict what Trump will do, I think he will just disengage. He's got a moral equivalence between Russia and Ukraine for who started the war and how it's conducted. I'm very much worried he will now simply back away, maybe continue to sell arms to European countries that can be transmitted to Ukraine. But in terms of any effort to help Ukraine defend itself against this unprovoked Russian aggression, I don't see it.
What should the US be doing?
Well, what we should have done 3.5 years ago, frankly, was develop a strategy with NATO actually to achieve what NATO's stated goal is, which is the full restoration of Ukrainian sovereignty and territorial integrity, which we didn't do for 3 years under the Biden administration. It's much more difficult now. But I think that's the only acceptable outcome. Otherwise, Russia, China, and other potential aggressor nations will draw the conclusion that you can get away with aggression.
Has Trump been humiliated to some degree in this situation by Putin?
Well, I think he has been. I don't think he realizes it, but I think Putin believes that the old magic is back, that his KGB training has allowed him again to pull the wool over Trump's eyes. It's working out very well for the Kremlin.
What about, you reference European countries there, NATO countries. You know, last night, for example, the UK agrees to supply and Norway agrees to buy as well, British frigates, for example. What can countries such as the UK do in situations such as this? How much leverage is there in reality?
Well, I think to support the commitment we've all made to Ukraine, the continuation of arms shipment and really developing a strategy to prevent further erosion of Ukrainian control in the face of this continuing Russian onslaught is just critical. And if the Trump administration isn't willing to provide it, I think England, which was a leader in aiding Ukraine right from the day of the invasion in 2022, could well take the leading role.
And in a sense of leadership, Sir Keir Starmer has allied with Emmanuel Macron of France to head up the coalition of the willing, as they're calling it, that may play some role in security guarantees if that world was to ever come about. What do you make of those offerings to try and bring about peace in that perspective?
Well, I don't think the security guarantees mean that much, actually. I think what Putin has here is a long-range strategy to take control of Ukraine. This is part of his goal to recreate the Russian Empire. He's been very clear on that in public statements for 20 years. So despite the enormous human cost to the Russians and to the Ukrainians, he's only roughly doubled Russian control of Ukrainian territory from the first assault in 2014. I think any pause in the fighting is just the preliminary so that Russia can rebuild and restock its army and get ready for the third offensive.
It always strikes me there's a challenge for Western democracies. 4-year cycles in the United States. In the UK, 4 to 5 year cycles. Russia, Putin's been there since 2000, 25 years. You know, look at Xi Jinping, he's set himself up for life as well. These authoritarian figures have the benefit of time, do they not? They afford themselves the benefit of time. And the variable consistency from the West is a challenge for the West because we're changing tack, if not on a 4-yearly basis, often even faster than that.
Well, we actually did pretty well through the Cold War, which was a long struggle from 1945 roughly to 1989. I think we can do it again, but I think it requires, honestly, the leadership of the United States, and I don't see that for the next 3.5 years.
To what degree should we think about any limitations that President Putin has? And I think, for example, the economy is suffering. His long-term ally, which he pumped billions of dollars of support into, or rubles of support into, Bashar al-Assad, falls, and all Russia really does is allow the plane to land in Moscow. You know, Moscow and Tehran sign a security agreement, but then Israel bombs Iran widely with US support, and Russia doesn't do anything there either. Is there limitations to Moscow? And if so, to what degree can they be leveraged?
Well, I think there are limitations, but I think the graver danger is the axis that's being formed right now between China and Russia. It may look like the Sino-Soviet alliance of the Cold War, but this time China is clearly the dominant partner. I think it has grave threats implicit in it for Russia itself. But in the meantime, this is how this Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting, and by the way, the big parade on Wednesday where the Chinese communist version of how they beat Japan in World War II will be displayed, shows really long-term thinking on Xi Jinping's part. So he's happy to bring Russia closer to him in the long term, very, very beneficial to China.
And that parade, a historic attendance, first time since 1959, I think, of a North Korean leader going to that parade. History being made there. A different kind of history being made here later this autumn. Donald Trump coming for a second state visit, unprecedented. You will have seen that moment that Sir Keir Starmer flourishes the letter from the King. What would, if you were sat in a room with either the King or with Sir Keir. What would your advice be to dealing with Trump, having spent so much time with him one-on-one?
Well, flattery is always good. Refer to the Gulf of America, formerly the Gulf of Mexico. Think of things like that. I give Starmer credit for deploying the state visit invitation when he first met with Trump. He may want to deploy it 2 or 3 more times during Trump's term. It may be an annual thing. Trump loves it. When the Queen gave the state dinner in Buckingham Palace in the first Trump state visit, really, I thought he would have stayed all night if he could have.
You could see a world where it would be beneficial for, it's often touted the special relationship to have the president over on an annual basis to really cement that.
Well, for Donald Trump, I think other presidents would be more understanding.
Fair enough, fair enough. Your own relations with the president crumbled somewhat, I think it's fair to say, since 2019, since you worked for him. What is your kind of stance there now in 2025?
Well, I think many of the policies Trump is pursuing are detrimental to the country, not just internationally, but domestically as well. We've just had a situation where Trump has taken the U.S. government to have a 10% stake in Intel, the major information technology company. Congress has been on its summer recess. I only saw a comment from one senator on that decision of partial U.S. ownership of a free enterprise company. It was Bernie Sanders, the socialist independent who caucuses with Democrats from Vermont, who thought it was a great idea. This is just simply not Republican Party philosophy at work.
It was an unusual situation in recent days where he said that he knew the feeling. You both have had the FBI at your doors for different reasons, and investigations are ongoing. What was that moment like on a personal level?
Well, I've had more fun, let's put it that way. There's a lot I could say on that subject. I wish I could. Unfortunately, now's not the time or place.
No, I appreciate that. And how long are you in London for, John?
Well, just a short time to speak to the Bruges group this evening and have some meetings.
Well, good to have you with us. Thank you for sharing your time on Sky News. Appreciated. Thank you. John Bolton there. Plenty more coming on the situation in Afghanistan, developing situation there. At least 622 people known to have died. The number of dead continues to rise. International teams delivering emergency assistance and treating the wounded following that earthquake.
Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming.
I'm Deborah Haynes, Sky Security and Defence Editor. Should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real.
It's like Emirates. It's like better. It's like Emirates. It's like better.
We'll be revisiting our top story in Afghanistan in a few moments' time. At least 800 people have been killed in that magnitude 6 earthquake in the country. Let's just, first though, Mari, talk about the reshuffle that's happening in Westminster.
So, we've managed to get some clarity now on what is happening, and it seems that this is a kind of Downing Street reshuffle rather than a wider ministerial reshuffle. So Darren Jones, who was, until a few moments ago, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, very senior Treasury Minister under Rachel Reeves, he's moving to number 10, and he's now going to be in this new job based in number 10, overseeing work across the support of delivery of the Prime Minister's priorities. That's the line that we've given. You've seen him on your screens there. You've seen him on Sky News many times before. He's then going to be replaced by James Murray, who is going to now be the Chief Secretary of the Treasury. He was the Exchequer to the Treasury. And then James Murray is going to be replaced by Dan Tomlinson, who is an actually 2024 intake new MP. Also, we're hearing from number 10 that this is bolstering the Downing Street operation, ramping up the next phase of the government's domestic agenda. And as you were also outlining, we have Baroness Shafiq, who is being appointed the Chief Economic Advisor. She was formerly the Deputy Governor of the Bank of England.
We'll keep a close eye on all of that. Mari, thank you for the moment so much. Let's just get you more on the situation in Afghanistan. Joining us now live is Joyce Singhal from the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, joining us live from Afghanistan. What's the latest? What can you tell us about the situation where you are?
Great. Thank you for having me here. So as you have rightly reported, last night we had a severe earthquake in parts of Afghanistan, almost 6.0 magnitude. And thousands of people have been affected, and almost we are seeing 600 fatalities on the ground. The area that has been affected is very mountainous. It's very difficult to reach. And there are several passes which have been blocked because of the landslides that have been caused by the earthquake. Afghan Red Crescent teams were immediately mobilized and were on the ground providing search and rescue facilities. And the immediate needs, as we are seeing, are first aid, search and rescue, emergency shelter. And as you can see on the screen, vast areas have been devastated because of houses that have been damaged completely and landslides that have taken place. The situation on the ground is quite dire, actually, at this point of time.
What's the response from the Taliban authorities so far, and what capacity do they have to be able to help people?
So, I mean, as we know, Afghanistan has been reeling through significant crises over the past few years. Right now, Afghanistan is facing through a severe malnutrition crisis, a food insecurity crisis, and many people who are returning back to Afghanistan from bordering areas of Pakistan and Iran. So the country's capacities to be able to provide a sustained life-saving support to its population has been quite weakened over the past few years. So in this situation as well, I think the authorities would indeed require support from civil society actors, such as the Red Cross, to be able to mount a response which could provide both life-saving support and rehabilitation support in the coming weeks and months.
Do you envisage international assistance being provided? And if so, what might that look like?
So the International Federation of the Red Cross has already mobilized. We have pre-positioned stocks and supplies in place in Kabul and many other areas with our partner Afghanistan Red Crescent Society. And we have already mobilized those supplies to be released to support the people on the ground. And these include, for example, tarpaulins, blankets, shelter toolkits, tents. And our partner is also providing, the Red Cross is providing mobile health services to the people who are affected, including search and rescue efforts. We do envisage that looking at the extent of damage, a lot more international assistance would be required in the coming weeks. And we are looking at mobilizing both financial resources, human resources, and non-food items to provide support to the people who are affected.
Joining us live from Kabul, Joyce Singhal from the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. Good to have you with us. Appreciate you sharing your time. We're seeing these latest images of the situation in Afghanistan. Developing situation there, at least 800 people known to have been killed by that magnitude 6 earthquake. Over 1,300 people known to have been injured. More details on the live blog on the Sky News website and Sky News app.